Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Look at this fuck right here. um, Today's Tuesday, August 4th, 2026. I don't have to put a video up till Thursday morning, so this is this will be then. So I was going to sort of ease into it and just check out all the material. I have a phase where I start going through and looking for clips and things like that. It's funny because I did long clips yesterday, 20-minute long clips, where I was covering RFK Jr. Debate with Dana Bash, and I usually don't do that anymore because I get a lot of my stuff on Twitter where there's like shorter clips, and I have more shorter clips now, and it's you get out of practice, which is weird. Where I'm talking for a long period of time. It's different when I do the audio, just the audio only on the voiceover. But anyways, I opened up my phone this morning and it was scrolling through YouTube, and there was a video from MSNBC, and they showed a shorter version of this clip right here. And this is an amazing clip.
Areas where they cut it and ripped it. But there's a tape, and Jesse Waters, by the way, did a whole big thing on it. There's a tape that's out there that I posted on Truth, where you have people leaning over the side, the weakest part because of the flexibility. It moves. It's very complicated. It moves. And the softest part has to be flexible. And that's the stuff you can cut. And these guys knew what they were doing. And they cut all...
These guys knew what they were doing.
All the way along the base. Cut, cut, cut. Now, when Janine looked at it, it was the day after the 4th of July, with the largest fireworks display in the world. And the stuff was laying all over the pool, the fireworks, because they used the pool as one of the, and it was all over the pool. It was the day after, very shortly thereafter. But that was working beautifully, and it was vandalized. And if you look at the tape, now the tape isn't a great tape in the sense that it's a little hard to say who it exactly was. But it was people cutting.
Yeah, you can't see them. You can't see them cutting. Like if you can't see somebody cutting, and
this very expensive material, waterproofing material.
Okay, so first of all, if you're putting, like I said this the other day, if you're putting some sort of waterproofing material on stone, like they had stone there, right? So, before it was just stone, and whatever they did to try to keep it from leaking, right? If you're putting that on, if you've gone to an outdoor pool, cement pool, like a town pool, a hotel pool, they put paint on it. And, I've used waterproof paint on bathroom floors before, and I talked about how I recently redid my tub. I got this, the most non-toxic stuff I could get, and I scrubbed the rust off the tub. It was like an old tub. And then you pour this stuff in. And I showed people the video, and it came out pretty nice and, better than I thought it would. It's lasted 6 months without any issues. And, if it gets a cut in it, you can't just peel it off, right? Maybe over time, but it has to bond solidly to the surface. It's not like it's like a pool liner that you're putting inside, like some, I use this, I have an outdoor pond, and I've used pool liners, and I won't do that again. That's the last time I do if I have to redo the thing. I've had to redo it numerous times. The pool liners, the pond liners, and I get thick pond liners, like so heavy you can barely move them. And you get a pond liner. Stick will go through it or something will pop through it, and then the water's going to leak, even if it's a small leak. Water pressure is, And so, like what he's talking about is silly. This stuff should have bonded to the cement in the way you can't just peel it off, right? Like, and so, if they were able to do what he was saying, then there's a failure in their process, which he kind of acknowledges here.
Anyway, it looked beautiful. And then they cut it, and they vandalized. And we weren't necessarily thrilled with the contractor, but...
You weren't necessarily thrilled with the contractor. Okay, so there it is, right? Whoever did the work didn't do it sufficiently. It shouldn't come off like that, right? Like it shouldn't come off. But he embarrassed himself. He said he was going to do something. This is all about Trump and embarrassing himself. And so, like, when his failure is just so evident, right? There's the failure, like, when he talks about things that are more abstract, like economic things and whatever, it's money's just imaginary. It's just, digital, and it's not, all these things. And he can claim the markets are better than they are, or gas prices would be higher, I mean, he's surprised how low they are, and it's only because he ran a nuclear weapon. You could have these excuses. But when you say you're going to do a better job and make something better, and it fails in a very public way, where people can walk by and see the failure, your failure, and it has to do with construction, which is Trump's fucking thing. Like, Trump's a builder, builds buildings and hotels, and, all the things. That's his one thing. And he fails epically. And it's worse off than it was before, and people are mocking it, and they're peeling chunks off of it, taking it home as souvenirs, and there's all these videos of the pond liner coming off, which is, they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. They didn't do a good job, and it's a massive job, bigger than a normal pool. Remember, he's talking about how it's bigger than the biggest skyscrapers, and he was bragging about it. Now he's embarrassed, and so he came up with this vandal story. And shills like Jesse Waters ran with it because Trump will, he starts believing his own bullshit. So then he loses his shit right here.
They did a job, and they were fixing any problems, but then it got carried away because the judge was extremely unfriendly to Janine. And frankly, I think she choked because the judge was...
She choked. It's like she choked because she didn't have any evidence. Like, she brought up a shitty trial. She brought up a shitty case, a case that any other person would dismiss, a petty case because you're a petty little fuck, and you got all these yes people around you who can't say no to you, and you made up some bullshit that didn't fucking happen, and she didn't have any way to prove it, and the judge fucking slapped her, and you're like, she choked.
The judge was extremely unfriendly to Janine, and frankly, I think she choked because the judge was really vicious. Instead of going after the people that did it, the judge went after her and went after her department. And I guess she choked. I don't know what the hell happened.
Are you reconsidering her role?
I don't know what. You don't. You're fake news. Don't ever talk again.
Don't ever talk again. Like, who the fuck are you, you piece of shit? You ain't fucking nobody. You ain't no fucking king. You're nothing, you fat fuck. Fucking parasite. You're nothing. Who the fuck are you? Don't ever talk again. You're fake news. Like, this is when you start believing your own bullshit. The Sajmarg system, the second master of the system, said, lying, the worst part about lying is when you lie to yourself. That's the one that does the most spiritual damage. I mean, if you're at least aware of your own lies, it's not good, obviously, but you're not buying into the bullshit. When you start creating illusionary worlds, I mean, that's when you go crazy. When you can't deal with reality anymore, when reality's too fucking painful and you just make shit up and you believe your own lies. And Trump can't ever face the fact that he's a worthless piece of shit, and he's a professional bankrupter. He goes bankrupt and he fails, and
You're fake news. One of the worst in the business. Fortunately, nobody watches you, but something happened.
Something happened. All right, so that was fucking something there, right? Like, he's just losing his shit. And, like, that's a real, his job is to ask you questions. And you just said that you're, whatever the fuck she is, she's not his attorney general, whatever fucking role she has, cleaning up D.C., prosecutor, I don't know, that she choked, that the judge made her choke. The judge was vicious, went after the wrong people, wasn't going after the people. Like, you're supposed to prove a case. And it was a bullshit case. And, it's an obviously bullshit case based in your bullshit fucking inability to accept that you failed. You even acknowledged that the contracts were fixing the parts that were failing. And so, it wasn't vandalism that caused your failure, you little fuck. And then when he gets axed on it, he's like, you can't talk anymore. You fucking talk anymore. I can't tell you who talks and who doesn't talk. And so, what an asshole. What a complete piece of shit. All right. That's a good way to start off here. All right, this is fucking amazing here. Um, she's posting this on Facebook.
Hi, everyone. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I am excited to let you know I am now on Cameo.
Tough times there, Marjorie. Tough times. Cameo. So, let's go a little further here.
So if you have a special message for a friend or a loved one, I would love to deliver it for.
Okay, I have a special message. I want you to sing the Island Boys song for me. Island Boys, we're on Cameo. It's Island Boys, we Cameo. I want you to sing the Island Boys song because that's the only other group that I know is on Cameo. Maybe, I don't know. Is that something Kyle Dunnigan did? The comedian? I don't know. I think he was talking about that on his show. But I don't know anybody else on Cameo because it's fucking degrading. So, you ordinary people can get you to fucking say shit for them, right? And, it's bad. And it's really weird, the whole celebrity stuff. I mean, that you're trying, it's icky. I mean, it's just, it's hard times. It's like people who used to be famous who desperately need money. And, I don't know how much it costs her to do it. We can check out her Cameo page here in a moment. But, like, what's happening? Like, I thought you were rich. Like, what happened? Like, she just got married in Vegas? Some shit like that?
Or you, or any other message for anyone. How do you do it, you ask? You just click on the link and follow the instructions, and we'll be on our way.
Okay, so it only cost you $149. If you want to book a business video, it's $5,000. But $149, you can get Marjorie Taylor Greene to wish you a happy birthday. You can ask a question. You can receive a pep talk. Fucking, there's pep talks? I know there are pep talks. What else is down here? How do you scroll over? There's something over here. What the hell? They're shading their thing. What else could you do? I mean, book a happy birthday, book a question, pep talk. I want her to sing the Island Boys song. The Island Boys. Only 5 left at this price. What do you mean there's only 5 left at this price? You're running out of stock of her fucking embarrassing herself for $149. You can, if you don't, it's only 5 left. There's only 5 left at this price. What does the price go up to? $159? How is this a special? There's some kind of special going on. They have just a surplus of Marjorie Taylor Greene wishing people happy birthday. All right, so this is amazing. I guess there was a little more here, so let's watch it.
Don't ever talk again. You're fake. It's one of the worst in the business. Fortunately, nobody watches you. But something happened. There was vandalism there, and there was some things from the contractor which we would fix. But it's almost complete, and when it opens, it's incredible. It's really incredible. But remember this: it leaked from 1922. It opened in 1922. They never solved the leak problem because it was stone, and the cracks with the stone. Stone is really not a waterproofing material. We essentially use a very high-grade swimming pool type material, which was my idea. I was very proud of that idea. And by the way, I didn't.
Yeah, so you're very proud of that idea. So when it failed,
the contractor. Everyone said the contractor. I didn't know the contractor, but when it was completed, it was perfect. But then somebody went in and cut it, just like they did the grass. Nobody talks about the grass. The grass have...
Well, yeah, talking about the fucking grass. Why isn't no one talking about the grass? Maybe you can hire Marjorie Taylor Greene on Cameo. And she can talk about the grass.
Helicopter pictures of what they did. Wasn't it 87? Right? Do you know what they did, right? Did you see what they did? Do you see what they wrote? What did they write?
8647.
That's right, 8647. They 86 them. So it's 86, 47. They didn't.
That's when you run out of stuff at a restaurant, they say 86. The clam chowder.
45, at least they left 45, huh? But they, and massive letters on the grass, 8647. And nobody talked about that. That was vandalism too. We had to replace all that grass. It was a tremendous amount of grass.
There's so much grass. It takes a lot of grass to 8647.
Because when you hit it with this poison, it's acid. It kills the grass no matter how, you can't even clean it, even if you got there right after. It's very powerful stuff. I know it well. So
He knows it well because he's used it before. He said he wrote 8646.
people did great damage to this thing because they're sick people. You know,
They're sick people. These people are sick fucking people. They should be locked in prison for the rest of their life for ripping out chunks of our failed fucking pool liner.
representing the man is a man from Crew, a sleazebag who's been suing me for my whole political, hasn't won, he's lost all the time. But Crew, do you know what Crew is? It's a third-rate operation that's supposed to be a charity, but it's not. They used it for political reasons. So we should be proud of our monuments, and we should be proud of our city. And you know, that was open before they did the damage. It was open. It never looked more beautiful. It looked like a mirror. And that's what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, then you're not even talking about the mold and shit, right? Because it immediately started to, like you just can't have open water in the middle of the summer and with the sun going. You get blanket weed and this other stuff that grows. The algae, it was fucking gross. Like, it looked good for one day, but it still looked like a swimming pool. That was the problem with your fucking pool liner idea. It was failure. You failed, you fuck. You failing fuck.
Very dark color, because otherwise you don't see it as a reflecting pool. And it looked beautiful. Well, it'll look just as beautiful. It'll be fixed and open over the next week and a half, 2 weeks.
Mr. President, do you bring foreign missions?
One more, yeah.
Will you bring foreign missions?
Well, you have a very interesting group. Who I really voted for is Mike Rogers.
I guess he said something else about her choking. Let's see where that is. Okay, here.
The reflecting pond, they hadn't put up the cameras yet. They had enough up because you see what's happening. But if they would have had them up, we would have had it would have been a lot easier.
Yeah, to videotape something that didn't happen. Like, you can't, and so that's the problem. He's admitting they had no case, right? So he's admitting that if they had more cameras, they would have had a better view of these guys fucking destroying his masterpiece.
And I was disappointed with Jeanine Pirro. Really disappointed with Jeanine Pirro. She folded like an umbrella, and people get away with things, and it's a disgrace.
Okay, if she had evidence, it wouldn't, because you just admitted that you needed more cameras. And nobody is seeing what you're seeing. Nobody's seeing, like you're saying they went across with a box car. You just made that up. And, like, it shouldn't have just peeled off. Like, it's not, especially if it's fresh and new. Like, the whole thing's silly. Whatever you put on there wasn't right for the, and it wasn't just the damage. It was the fucking, all the slime they had to take out of there. It was disgusting. Like, you failed. Like, you just didn't, you trumped it, right? Too bad you can't go bankrupt on this one.
But we're very proud of Lafayette Park. Now we have
Maybe you can have Marjorie Taylor Greene do a cameo of firing Jeanine Pirro, and she can say, "You folded like an umbrella. You're fired." Right?
Decision to make. Do we take the pavers that are red, the red brick pavers, and do we change them into a granite? It's a gray granite. They're beautiful, but they're not the original. So we're going to have to make that decision. You have a good sense of taste. What would you do? Huh?
Yes, change it.
You would change the red brick into the granite.
Heartbeat.
The granite is much stronger, holds up much better, different color.
Legacy.
Change it. Okay.
Are you considering firing Pirro, Mr. President?
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today's the MLB trade deadline, and there's been talk lately.
He doesn't want that guy. He's fake news. He's asking real questions. He usually doesn't go after somebody like he's going after Pirro.
A potential lockout next year. I think over salary cap
Yeah.
concerns. the salary cap. Do you support a salary cap in the MLB, and what are your thoughts?
Well, we're going to talk about that at a different time. You know, it's a complex situation, but not too complex for me. Yeah, please, in the back.
What did you think of the Nationals trading Luis Garcia to the Yankees? And do you think
The which one?
Luis Garcia from the Washington Nationals to the your New York Yankees. And
Yeah.
What do you think of the job Brian Cashman's doing?
Well, I've known Brian Cashman for a long time. Look, he's done a good job. I think Randy Levine is great. He's a great.
Okay, that's what are you talking about asking these fucking questions? I mean, you're talking about fucking baseball. All right. So she folded like an umbrella. So my wife and I will send each other back and forth clips. You know, even if we're home in the same, you know, like we're different parts of the house or out, you know, whatever. And we went for a walk, and she said, I was talking about this thing I just sent her with the stuff you just saw with Trump and his pool stuff. He said, well, do you see the clip? Like, if she sends something by email, I won't see it as soon as I do if it's a message. But here, this guy's talking about Trump's dementia.
Mr. I Did It All for the Nussy had a pretty terrible performance in his press conference yesterday because the treatments he's getting at the beginning of every month are starting to not work anymore. My sources tell me that his meeting with a medical specialist at Camp David was a disaster, and he's probably not that far from just refusing medical attention altogether.
Okay, so but who are your sources? Like, what sources would you have?
I'm a physical therapist with a doctorate in my field and 15 years experience working in home health care, treating geriatric patients with dementia, heart failure, kidney disease, history of stroke, heart attack, all the shit that he has.
Okay, so how does that guy, that someone with that work, have sources, right? The people you work for or with have dementia. Here's.
We have a conflict with Iran, and that's working out very well, very, very well.
Contraflict. That is not a word. This is a characteristic symptom of frontotemporal dementia known as neologisms, where the dementia patient starts to make up words because the atrophy of the frontal lobe is disintegrating their language abilities. Mutilization, it's another recent made-up word he's had.
Utilization.
Now, we have photographs or tapes, like moving cameras, right? We have them where people are on the side cutting it with a box knife. Was it? So, now I'm not
He
saying...
literally could not remember the word video or footage, again for the same reason. The frontotemporal dementia is poking holes in his vocabulary. And then he notices a camera in the room and points to it and says, yeah, that's the thing that I mean. And this is due to atrophy of the brain as a result of dementia. And for a split second, he actually mesmerized himself with that characteristic accordion movement of his hands. He nearly lost his train of thought completely. By the way, if he's moving his hands like that, he is bullshitting. There's not enough room in this video to show it all. He went on a nearly 8-minute rant about the reflecting pool, about the
We saw it. We saw.
new gold covering they've put on some monuments in the city. He told a reporter, "You're fake news, never speak again." It might be the longest unhinged bullshit rant I've ever heard.
They put in here when he says bullshit. They put in Hegseth here.
It might be the longest unhinged
Bullshit.
bullshit rant I've ever heard from him. And that's saying a lot. When he's doubled down again that it was vandalism that caused the reflecting pool to malfunction. He's made this entire storyline up in his head, and he 100% believes that it's true. This is a characteristic frontotemporal dementia symptom known as confabulation. As rapidly as he is declining, that's why I keep telling you guys, the big beautiful obituary could happen any day now. Falling down the stairs with a catastrophic injury, walking up on the fucking roof and falling off. Who knows? There's so many possibilities.
So many possibilities. They're going to 86-47.
Happy Tuesday. At this point,
Happy Tuesday. All right, so I guess they're going with this thing. All right, I mean, not as good as that. I've shown you that MSNBC, back when it was MSNBC, they had some minor reporter, and he interviewed a doctor who specialized in Parkinson's disease. And, he clearly could demonstrate. I mean, he said a first-year intern should be able to diagnose Joe Biden from across the room. And he's, when Joe Biden would turn his whole body, And he had terms for these things, industry terms. They have these things that they, whatever they call it. I mean, it's a great, people who work with a specific condition, they just can see it, and they can see it everywhere. And, Joe Biden, the way he walked, his gait, and the way he turned his whole body instead of turning his neck, and, these are all signs of Parkinson's. And there becomes a differential diagnosis, right? When you're working with the DSM-5, there's the narcissistic personality disorder and the borderline personality disorder and the antisocial personality disorder share many traits. There's a lot of selfishness in these type of things. Or they have something called schizotypal, and they have something called schizophrenia. They have these various things. And then they have multiple personality disorder, whatever it is. So they have these things that are dissociation, identity disorder, whatever. They have these different diagnoses that share a lot of the same symptoms. But as the guy was talking about it, he said that Joe Biden, you might think he has like Alzheimer's or something, but after a while, the physical stuff starts with Parkinson's. There's more physical things that happen because of the brain, the brain deterioration. And so, it was very clear that that's what he has, based in this expert. And, now, when they didn't decide to pursue it, and that guy showed up. I've taped it. I've got the whole thing somewhere saved. But it's an excellent, this guy's stuff is, similar to that, but not as good because it's not as symptom specific. But Trump is clearly melting down. And when I was saying this to my wife, that, we're in our 60s, and you can tell that you're not the same. Your mind isn't as sharp, and like I forget words. You have these things, and whether it's dementia related, your body, your organs aren't working as well. Your liver and things, especially now in the toxic world you live in, and you don't have as much energy, and like we'll always be farming, and I'll do this until like I'm just babbling incoherently. So, I mean, but in terms of like working's a good thing because it keeps you sharp, but you don't take a job on like the presidency. And we've had 2 back-to-back 80-year-old presidents. These are the oldest presidents we've ever had, and they're not in good shape. They don't eat well. They didn't take care of they're already lying, grifting piece of shit. Bad character qualities, disconnected from God, gross. Both of them are gross. Just shitty people. And, the stress of the job, and just, you don't take a job like that. You don't start a new job when you're in your 70s, late 70s. And both these guys, Joe Biden, I think, had just turned 80 in his last term, and now Trump's turning 80. And, like this, they're the oldest presidents ever. And, there's a reason why your presidency should start in your, late 60s. I mean, 50s, 60s. Maybe early 70s, but like not, you don't want to be in your late 70s when you're in your second term. We saw it with Ronald Reagan and some of these other people. You're just not as sharp. Like, the mandatory retirement age for some of these jobs is, your 70s, whatever it is, used to be 65. People would retire. And so, I mean, you just slow down. You're not as good of a worker, physically and mentally. And you still need to do something. You need to have hobbies. You need to do some work. You can do some part-time job, but you don't take on the inability to deal with stress, and your body isn't consistent. Like, you can't be traveling all over the place. Remember when Joe Biden had that issue with his Joe Biden was he went on he was in Europe right before the debate with Trump, and he came back and went to some gala that whatever that actor's name is, George Clooney, who came out and wrote that op-ed about it, and that Joe Biden was walking around and everyone knew he was gone. And then 3 days later he had the debate, or next day or whatever. And he failed miserably, but they knew already he was already fucked. Because he couldn't travel. Like, he was in Europe, and you're not consistent with your routine and these things, right? Like, you just having your routine and having everything that you need, and you need a lot more things as you get older. You need a lot more consistency, and long car trips. I mean, you're going to get sore. Plane travel is a nightmare in various ways. And the older you get, the harder it is. The more the jet lag affects you. You just can't recover as well. And so, like, these guys are. I mean, they have their Air Force Ones and their private jets, but still, you have the effects of being, traveling that distance and waking up in a, foreign city. I mean, the whole thing. As much as they have people around them trying to give them everything that they need, these ultra wealthy people and someone like the president, they have body people, body men, people are there to make sure they're hydrated and all that shit, handlers. But you just start to break down, like the stress of the constant problems, and you can't be consistent. Like your body just glitches out and shit like that. You see it with Mitch McConnell and these other people. And so these people they hold jobs long after they should retire. And, so this is as much of a problem as these guys being just shitty. You have two presidents back to back who have deteriorating mental function, cognitive issues. It's a bad thing. And, it's got to be intentional. But anyways, that's Trump. Okay, so this thing popped back up.
This morning, Savannah and her family renewing their agonizing plea for answers. This is our beautiful mom. 6 months ago, someone took her out of her bed in the dead of night. We have lived every moment, every breath, and every heartbeat in agony and despair ever since. We are begging for help. We need someone to come forward. The heartbreaking message from Savannah coming as the Pima County Sheriff's Office released the 2 ransom notes, believed to potentially be credible, that were sent to local media outlets in the days after Nancy Guthrie's abduction on February 1st. The first one, chillingly addressed to Savannah on February 2nd, demanded Bitcoin in the amount of $4 million USD before 5 p.m. on Thursday the 5th, or $6 million USD by 5 p.m. on Monday the 9th. Instead of payment is received.
You got ransom options here. You can do Bitcoin or you can do regular. The Bitcoin's going to be a little bit cheaper, $2 million cheaper.
She will be released within 12 hours of deposit to a safe drop-off location back in Tucson.
Yeah, that sounds kind of shady.
But if it is not, she will be killed. 2 days later, days before the final ransom deadline, came the second note, saying Nancy perished shortly after she was taken. We believe it was heart-related. She is buried in nature now, adding, we are truly sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry we killed your mom. Jesus fucking Christ. Sorry we killed your mom unnecessarily kidnapping because we're greedy pieces of shit. Sorry.
The next day, Savannah posted this.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace.
Okay, I don't think it should be an open casket. I was not overly bummed. I got sad when my mom died. Unconsciously. And I've told that story before. I just started, whatever it was. I can just tell it now. There's this woman, an Indian woman who was crazy. She was wealthy, came from the Patel, whatever they have. These Kamish Patel's the guy in charge of the system now. No, he fucked it up, but she was from England. She had a little bit of an English-British accent, sort of aloof. And she'd walk around the ashram and she would just interrupt your conversation. Just, crazy people shit, right? And I was talking to my ex and, I was saying I was kind of feeling like something. Like when I first heard my mom died. My parents were in their 90s. My mom had just turned 90. My dad was 93 or something. They died my mom died like a year and a half after my dad. And we weren't close and, my brother was there. But, your mom is just whatever. And I started to feel something. And this woman came up and just interrupted. And my ex, this was right before we were splitting up. She was a nightmare. When it happened, she was, I ended up sitting there watching Guardians of the Galaxy, on a Sunday after meditation. There was something else that happened where we were renting from somebody and this woman, the day I found out my mom died, started being a cunt to us, right? So, but my ex was just totally, a piece of shit and, just bad about it. So, instead of stopping the woman, I was getting maybe a little bit emotional. I was feeling something about my mom. There's some subconscious sadness. And this woman interrupts, and my ex should have said, can you wait a minute, whatever. But she had no boundaries, and she just sucked. It was just whatever. So it was more her than the woman. And I went to the woman, and like swearing, and, especially to someone like this who's kind of, cultured or whatever, crazy but cultured in India. And I go, are you out of your fucking mind? That's how I'm like, you crazy, like you just come up and you fucking interrupt. I'm in the middle of a fucking sentence, and I'm talking about my mom just dying. And you just walk up and start blabbing about fucking nothing. And I just went on for like 5 minutes, just swearing and just telling her what a piece of shit she was. And my voice was a little bit like, almost like I was crying, like I was about to, it was like a little bit shit, like I just, and the woman was in shock. I mean, like, fucking, I had to go apologize. I was worried she was going to kill, like, it was so bad. But, I wasn't bummed. Consciously, my parents were old and they lived kind of shitty lives and, whatever. My mom, there's some spiritual stuff with it. My mom was more spiritual and, I feel like she, whatever. But, but this woman's been gone for 6 fucking months. And it's over. It's,
This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
Now, 6 months since Ness video captured a potential suspect at Nancy's door, President Trump asked about the lack of breakthroughs or new leads and if the FBI should be more involved.
Some people haven't liked the way the local communities run it.
who are those some people?
They haven't liked the way the sheriffs run it. But we would like to give them the benefit. But
I wonder if the guy who destroyed your pool and kidnapped her is the same guy. Maybe it's the same guy.
anytime they need us, it's a terrible thing.
The sheriff expressing confidence that the case will be solved, but emphasizing that it takes time.
6 months.
Very active. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. We've done a lot of work, but we still have more.
And Savannah.
Okay, are you like, it doesn't sound like you have anything, right?
Again, turning to the public. Someone recognizes the writing in the ransom demand notes. Someone has noticed something different, strange, troubling, or just unusual, perhaps with someone they deeply love. Perhaps they are afraid to come forward. Perhaps they are conflicted. There is a way out to tell what you know.
And Savannah, again, reminding people about the $1 million reward for any...
All right, like, it ain't happening. Like, I mean, she's certainly dead. Like, she's not, no one's taking care of her for 6 months. Like, they didn't steal a mob. Like, no one stole a grandma. Like, I mean, this is like a fucked up thing. But, like, chances are, if she dies, she's dead, and they buried her, they dumped her somewhere where they, because having the body, like, this isn't a murder. This isn't murder yet. You show up with a body, then it's murder, right? I mean, it's kidnapping now. It's murder if there's a body, and if there's no body, it's harder to prove there's a kidnapping. So, like, you ain't, it's. I mean, there's miles of desert in Arizona, so she could be anywhere, and whatever it is. All right, so that happened. So this guy, Steele, I don't know, Michael Steele, is it? He used to be in charge of the RNC. Used to be in charge of, like, he ran for president. He's really annoying. And now he's sucking over at MS Now as an anti-Trumper. I think he's no longer a Republican. I don't know.
You're going with this. That sounds like a textbook case of corruption. Big Tobacco gives the president money, and then his administration lifts restrictions on the products they sell. The ones that get kids hooked on nicotine? Surely there has never been a more blatant example of apparent corruption, right? Well, hold on to your hats. Just
hold on to your hats. Here comes the bigger corruption. So this video is already 4 minutes in, and I spared you the rest of it. It's getting to the point here, but apparently, Tobacco gave him money, and he lifted some of the, safety measures against them because that's what Trump does.
A bit longer. This is what Donald Trump calls the Freedom 250 ring. It's about the size of a watch, and it's from the Antwerp World Diamond Center in Belgium. It was presented in a big ceremony in Brussels as a gift to President Trump in June. Now, I mean, folks, listen, they put on a big show to really hype this thing up. And folks, it's pretty clear that a lot of thought and effort and attention and care went into making this ring. It has a handcrafted presidential seal and other intricate details in 18-karat gold, baby.
Baby?
And it is encrusted with a whole lot of gemstones. I mean, this massive ring, you ready? Has 321 diamonds in it, 56 sapphires, 13 emeralds, and 6 rubies.
Boom. Kaboom.
A little short on the rubies, I think. And while it was designed for America's anniversary, you know, that little birthday party that we had for ourselves, it's inscribed with the numbers 45 and 47, representing Donald Trump's 2 terms. It also has a giant T made out of diamonds on the
You know what T? It's got to have the T here. Looks kind of like the pyramid.
side of it. Not only that, oh, there's more. But the engraving on the interior of the ring reportedly says that it was, quote, crafted in Antwerp for Donald John Trump, end quote. So this diamond group clearly gave Trump a pretty serious gift, personal gift to Donald Trump.
See, it looks like
Gift to Donald.
See, like this looks like inverted pyramid without the capstone. Like he's selling this thing to the people who aren't in the capstone.
Donald Trump. And wouldn't you know it, just a few weeks later, Europe's diamond industry got some special treatment from President Trump. As the New York Times reports, natural diamonds, like the ones used in that ring, have been exempted from Trump's latest round of tariffs.
That's all it took was this amazing ring.
Oh, really? The move follows months of sustained advocacy by that diamond group in Antwerp, which dominates the global industry.
That's just fucking crazy. All right, so, you know, nothing new here. Like, you're making it sound like it's some kind of big thing. Trump's fucking grifting like a motherfucker, right? So I should probably watch this whole thing, this press conference, but...
Yeah, please do that.
Mr. President, you said last week that illegal immigration...
Who are you with?
GB News. You said that illegal immigration is killing the UK. Nigel Farage today has proposed the use of the Royal Navy to combat small boats crossing the Channel. Do you think that European nations, including the UK, should be using their militaries to stop illegal immigration?
Look, you have to stop illegal immigration in Europe. I know Europe better than anybody, better than the people that run it.
Did you hear what this motherfucker just said? I know Europe better than anyone. Better than the people that run it. He's an expert on fucking... I mean, for a guy who's completely uncurious. He gets bored listening to people. If it isn't about him, and if it isn't about, like, fucking, you know, a positive thing about him, he has no interest in it, right? If it isn't about something he's getting or something that he's going to, you know, can receive or something that's going to be an advantage, if it's about anybody else but him, he's uninterested. And he's not even interested that much in any of these things. He's bored, low attention span, doesn't listen to his briefings, doesn't do research, just makes shit up and expects everyone to go along with it. Just assume, like, he thinks he's God, right? He's got a God complex. He thinks whatever he believes is reality. You know, he's lost his shit. And, you know, for him to say he knows more about Europe than Europeans himself, he doesn't know more about anything than anybody else. I mean, he's a pretty good grifter. Maybe the best grifter. I don't know. Maybe he knows more about grifting. At least this kind of grifting that he's doing. But other than that, there's nothing else. Like, that's the only thing you could say he knows more about than anybody. And, you know, now, I don't know. I mean, it's like, he's not great at grifting because, like, his stuff is just right out in the open. And people know he's doing it. He's rigged the system so he doesn't get caught, which I guess is, you know, but it's only temporary. You know, as soon as the Democrats take over and the Republicans bail on him, like, he's going to be open season on this motherfucker and his family and everybody else. You know, I mean, if the powers that be don't stop that from happening. But either way, being a good grifter means people don't know you're grifting. You're not getting caught, right? But, you know, it's done a small group of people. You don't grift like on this scale, right? But either way, he's good at it. Like, he's definitely an accomplished grifter. Does he know more about grifting than anybody else? Possibly. But that's it. Like, that's its only thing. Everything else he knows nothing about, right? He's uninterested in any of these things. He's not, you know, a deep researcher. But he had the balls to say this.
Should be using their militaries to stop illegal immigration.
Look, you have to stop illegal immigration in Europe. I know Europe better than anybody, better than the people that run it, and I have great relationships. Two things are killing Europe. Number one is immigration. Number two is energy.
Those are the two things. And, I'm really fucking you over with the closing the Strait of Hormuz. Because that's, causing more problems with the energy issue. Here's another one. This is, like I said, I should listen to this whole thing because I'm sure there's,
They have a problem with immigration. They have a problem with energy. You have windmills all over the place. Windmills, you lose your shirt. Any country with windmills is a loser, okay? You just have to look. If they have windmills, they're a loser. Because you lose money with windmills.
Yeah. What countries are you talking about? Name the countries that you think are loser countries, right? Because of the windmills. The windmills cause your country to be a loser. Like this guy, he's a winner. He knows what winning's about. This guy's always win, except for when he loses, which is like pretty much all the time. But then he kind of wins and he cheats and then, he says everything's a victory when it's not. This guy. That's how you do it. Fuck windmills, right? Fuck windmills. So I saw something on Twitter. Tyler Robinson just got declared suicidal and thrown into solitary. Tyler J. Robinson, the 23-year-old accused of assassinating political activist Charlie Kirk, has been placed on suicidal watch and housed in an isolation cell. He is currently held in special housing unit at Utah County Jail, which represents the most restrictive custody level available in the state of Utah. Jail officials implemented these strict measurements following reports from law enforcement that Robinson experienced suicidal ideation prior to surrendering to authorities. So, I don't know when this is from here. This is the news thing. This is going back to October 3rd. So somebody posted this like it just happened, right? But this is, a while ago. And, he didn't Jeffrey Epstein. He didn't get Jeffrey Epstein, so. People just post shit all the time to fucking, this is what sucks about individuals doing. Individuals aren't better than piece of shit, compromised news organizations just because they're individuals, right? Like, in fact, you don't have an editor and you don't have any sort of, when you're just posting shit on the internet, you don't have any restrictions. You can be a crazy fuck and just make up anything. And you don't have anybody else telling you no. So, it's just as bad now. Like, all the information is shit now because of that. Because, you got all liars and fucking pieces of shit on every level. Okay. So, I watched Jaylen Brown commend Stephen A. Smith for his apology of Kyrie Irving, and Aaron Rodgers did the same. Aaron Rodgers went on Pat McAfee and shit all over Fauci and everybody who, so what happened with Aaron Rodgers, he didn't do as much as Kyrie Irving. Jaylen Brown brought up the fact that Kyrie Irving got kicked out by Nike, and he said all of a sudden Nike cares about ethics, right? Which is what I said back when, Nike had sweatshops, right? And so here he has a thing with Nike, apparently, Jaylen Brown does. But anyways, and there was rumors that he was left off the Olympic team because of that. Whatever it is. And then Aaron Rodgers went after all these people. Aaron Rodgers, he was asked if he was vaccinated, and he said he was immunized, which he was given some sort of, alternative medicine. And he explained that he has peanut allergy or something like that, and so he couldn't take these vaccines, and he already had COVID, so, the whole thing. And they demonized him. They went after him. And, Terry Bradshaw was a piece of shit that said all kinds of, he was like, he was standing with military guys and talking about how they had great characters and Aaron Rodgers could learn something from them. And, they all talked about how he's a lying piece of shit. And so he went after Fauci and all the rest for a good 8 minutes. It's worth watching if it's on, YouTube's. But this is the part I wanted to play here.
Yeah! Go back to the coward Tony Fauci in science. Hold on now. Who's spending the entire time writing in his diary about how fun it is to be famous.
Okay, so I didn't know Fauci wrote in his diary, but he quoted a few things from Fauci's diary. I cover this like it's real, only in the sense that none of it's real. Like, none of us, like, we're everything here is illusionary. Like our soul is what we actually are. You know, you're in a body, but you are a soul. And this it's like we're in a video game or simulation or whatever you want to call it. And then of course there's the lying part of the simulation too, the deception of the characters in the simulation. And so I always take with all this stuff with a grain of salt. But I really thought how stupid it sounds that Fauci had a diary and it's just coming out now and it contradicts everything he said. Like, why wouldn't he burn that fucking diary? Now, first of all, like, he knows he's grifting, right? You know, I covered this yesterday with, I just want to add one thing going back to the Fauci thing in a second. But I was talking about Dana Bash and, you know, she was hammering RFK Jr. about not pushing the measles vax, and there's only like 2,000 cases of measles every year, like in a country of 340 million people. But, you know, on top of all the other failures of the CDC, anywhere from 250,000 to 750,000 people a year die from medical mistakes. So when you go into the hospital, they might fucking kill you. You know, and there's people out there who have, I think it was a bunch of rabbis or something like that was writing a human organ ring. You know, they're taking people's organs, you know, finding young people or whatever, killing them and taking their organs. And, you know, I mean, your organs are worth quite a bit. So there's like a lot of shit out there, right? But going back to the Fauci thing, he knows he's committing fraud. Like, he knows he's fucking, you know, not just fraud, but he's being paid off by the pharmaceutical companies. I mean, it's run by, there's a relationship, there's only one relationship with the CDC, and it's pharmaceutical companies and the CDC. People in the CDC invent things and do research and then have patents that eventually are used in making pharmaceuticals. So they have personal interest in getting compensated from pharmaceutical industry. I mean, it's a clear relationship. And when you know that you're being a scumbag, and they all do on some level, and you know, like, you don't want people to know about it, you don't contradict yourself in your diary. Why would you fucking do that? Like, why would he say things in his diary that that were opposed to what he was saying out in the world? And then once you realize they're going to go after him, and they're going to probably need a scapegoat at some point, wouldn't you get rid of the diary? Like, he could just manufacture another diary. Like, you know, they're going to subpoena all your shit. And so it seems very suspect, right? It seems very sus. And fucking, you know, on top of that, nobody ever gets punished. Fauci's got a pardon. And the pharmaceutical industries, you know, all the people who are bought and bribed, all the people who lied to you, all the people that shilled for big pharma, and, you know, people died from the vaccine, and their lives are wrecked from it, health things. People are, you know, fucked up over COVID. I mean, a lot of people got negatively affected by this stuff, right? And the people who made the virus and released the virus are not being punished. The people who made the vaccines and released the vaccines and all the people who promoted it, not one person's going to jail. Nobody's losing their fucking job. So, you know, Tony Fauci gets embarrassed, pleads the fifth. Aaron Rodgers comes and, you know, does a victory dance with the other people. But nobody's getting fucking being held accountable, right? All the people that lied and piled on and promoted this, you know, none of them are getting fired. You know, all the sports people, all the other people, you know, the pundits and all the rest of them. And so nothing ever happens. But it seems very suspect that the guy had a diary, and they just, you know, and it's incriminating, and it comes out and he pleads the fifth. I mean, it just all looks fake and gay and just staged and the rest of it. You know, so that's what happened here. Okay, so this shows you how myopic Donald Trump is. Like, you know, when somebody has dementia, I mean, you got to cut them some slack, right? You got to be like, all right, well, they have dementia. But, you know, a lot of it comes from, you know, I talk about how everything comes from some scars, past things that you did in past lives. But also, you know, your habits and your diet and your attitudes, right? You know, like if you live a cleaner life, dementia isn't going to be, everyone's mind's going to deteriorate to some extent. I mean, all your organs start to go as you get older. It just happens. But you shouldn't be in a fucking job that's important, right? You know, if you're just retired walking around and, you know, they need to take your license at some point because you get confused and you can't drive. I mean, all these things. And, no one wants to take care of their parents. And Louis C.K. has a kind of funny bit about putting his dad in a nursing home and how fucked up it is, like just the concept of it is. Where you're just like, here, you trick your deal. We're going out to the park, like a thing. And you leave them in a nursing home for the rest of their life, right? That kind of thing. Because nobody wants to take care of them. Which is the whole reason for family, right? The whole reason to, is that you take care of each other and there's, But anyways, so all that having been said, this is what Trump's latest thing is.
Yeah, please.
President, did you sign off on Todd Lynch rescinding the anti-weaponization fund? And also, there are Democrats right now who say there's essentially two tax codes. There's the Trump family tax code and a normal people tax code. Why do you think that your family deserves some level of special exemption when it comes to the auditing of taxes?
Well, I'll go into that. First of all, I had a 10-year case that was settled until I announced I was running for office. It was a settled deal like I've been doing all my life. I've been audited every year for my entire life, which...
Okay, so a couple things there. So it's because you're a fucking criminal, asshole, right? Like, have you forgot you're a fucking criminal? Now, the IRS sucks and taxes suck and the government, it's a looting system. It's a whole thing there. But you were always, Trump has lawyers, a team of lawyers looking for loopholes and trying to find any possible way to get out of his obligations, his responsibilities, where they might be. Oftentimes he lost money, so that isn't true. Him being audited because, he declared bankruptcy 6 times. But if, he has this 10-year case, right? Well, let him finish here.
I have a lot of wealthy friends that were never audited. To this day, they were never audited. I was audited.
Okay, so first of all, the victim bullshit. You're audited because you're a fucking criminal and you always are trying to get away with shit, right? You were out there in front of people. You made a lot of enemies because of your loud mouth and your fucking obnoxious nature. Always declare victory, never admit defeat, never admit that you did anything wrong, and go on the attack, right? Whatever those things were, I have it written down somewhere. From Roy Cohn, his lawyer from the movie The Apprentice, which, it's worth watching because it's clear that he got trained. This is how he deals with this kind of stuff. Always go on the attack. Never this is what he did with all his tax issues and things like this. And it wasn't just tax issues. He was always doing some bullshit. He was always breaking some law here, pushing the limits over here, right? Pissing people off, slumlord, just a piece of shit. Criminal, just, selfish, not thinking about other people, and just, this is who he's always been, right? And so you understand, and, he talks about this with Joe Rogan. Everybody fucking loved this guy. They showed him a clip, I think, on Joe Rogan or somewhere, of him on The View and how they all loved him. And you can see that clip even when he's talking about how he's attracted to his daughter in that weird-ass clip. They love him. They all fucking love him. He's like, Donald, they're fucking, he's part of the crew. They loved him at NBC, NBC and all those people. And he talks about how those people used to all love him. He talks about it. I mean, Trump was a popular celebrity. The rappers all loved him. He was mentioned. There's a whole fucking Mac Miller had a rap song with Trump in the title, and he was mentioned in other ones. And so Trump was well loved, even with his fucking asshole attitude. And what do you think, the government was after you? Why do you think you were a victim? Like, how are you a fucking victim? Right? Like, everything that you've gotten, you totally deserve from this life. Never mind what you did in the past. You've been a prick and have fucking screwed people over, cheated people, renegotiated deal, poor people, hardworking people. You've grifted time and time again, lied, haven't fulfilled your obligations, gone bankrupt. I mean, going bankrupt once, yeah. 6 fucking times, bro. Like, I can understand somebody learning a lesson and going bankrupt, but you 6 fucking times. So,
deal like I've been doing all my life. I've been audited every year for my entire life, which I have a lot of wealthy friends that were never audited. To this day, they were never audited. I was audited. And my deal was settled. In writing, it was settled, subject to final approval. Then I announced I was running for president, and all they did was haunt me with it. They ended the settlement, and they went after me illegally. and they did a lot of bad things to me like they did to other people.
Okay, so why aren't they in jail now? Who is they? And why, as president, why aren't you going after those people? All these people that wronged you. That all went after. I mean, you do go after people who went after you, but they always go after you legally. Otherwise, they'd be in jail. But why do you think that is? Why? What are you, Israel? Right? Are you Jewish? Like, what's this, victim thing where you think that everyone's against you? Like, have you done nothing in your life to deserve this? Right? Have you done? You haven't done anything to create negativity from other people. You haven't been like a fucking loudmouth, obnoxious person who doesn't have a filter that says things that offend people left and right. You haven't pushed the boundaries and laws and, tried to get over on the system. I mean, come on. Like, you haven't done selfish things your whole life, being a selfish prick. I mean, like, that's what your whole thing is. Like, everything that you do is deserved. Everything you get is deserved, right? Like, why the victim nice? Like, what do you think is going on here? Then what's their motivation? You're just such a wonderful guy. And even back then, they wanted to stop you from making America great again. Why do you think that is? Why do you think, Democrats used to love you? He was more of a Democrat. He hung with Democrats and liberals and people in the modeling industry and people in the Hollywood, Hollywood celebrities. I mean, he hobnobbed with all these people, right?
And I was treated very unfairly by the IRS. It was weaponized against me.
Again, okay, after you became president, you could say that was the case with Joe Biden. But you're saying this happened all your life.
I had a case this is a 10-year-old case. And it was settled. It was done. The case was over. I announced I'm running for president. And they...
Holy shit, bro. You just repeated a story. This is a 2 minute and 47... He's only a minute and 14 seconds in this. He's already repeated this story twice. Like my brother started to do this, and my brother was much sharper than this guy. I mean, you're right. Did you not know that you just told this story 2 seconds ago?
Terminated the settlement in Washington, and they went after me. And what they did here was frankly, if you talk about reparations or if you talk about payment, what they did to me, I had a very good case against them. So this was a case that was settled, that when I decided to run for president, right at the beginning, this is a long time, it's been going on for a long time, they terminated the settlement, which is something that never happened before.
Never in the history of the world they did. Just when I ran for president, they're like, oh, we got to get this guy. So the IRS has been after you your whole fucking life? Like, you're just some innocent poor little Donnie. They're just after you specifically?
We have letters from the biggest law firms in Washington saying that this case is nonsense, just like...
The lawyers that you hired?
The Russia was nonsense. They weaponized government. And so that's that, and most people understand that.
This is a guy who just made up some fucking scenario that of this vandalism on his shitty fucking reflecting pool. Some people call it a pond, some people call it a lake, some people call it a pool. And he fucking made up this story and then went after him, a guy that, tried to put some guy in jail for vandalism of all things. I mean, when there's real fucking crime going on out there. And then when Jeanine Pirro couldn't magically make evidence appear when they had none, he called her a fucking quitter, and she folded like an umbrella, and now he's going to fire her. Like in this, and you're saying other people have weaponized government? Like you weaponized, all your people are weaponized. Like you prevented the Jeffrey Epstein stuff from coming out because you're involved in it, and somehow you're a victim of that, and all your friends are victims of that. Like this is the fucking whiny victim stance. Nothing worse than a whiny victim who's in power.
On the fund, these were people that were treated unbelievable. 22 suicides, more than that, I think. Look at Ashley. Look at so many other things that happened. These people were treated horribly, and this fund could have given them some solace. But
yeah, people on your side, and you know who else treated him horribly? You did. He went after him twice, and then he gave two speeches after a couple days after January 6th, where he threw these people under the bus after he caused the whole thing by inviting them up to Washington D.C. and sending these people up to the Capitol, walking them into a trap. And I would think he might be a part of it, but I just don't think he could keep that a secret. He's got such a big mouth, especially now. We can't let these things, he admits to things all the time. I mean, he talks about how he gave Hillary Clinton a break. and that he didn't go after her and he had her dead to rights, but he didn't really want to do that. Like that's somebody who's weaponizing government. Like he's not weaponizing it against Hillary Clinton, but he's giving her treatment he wouldn't give to somebody else, right? And then he goes after certain people who are innocent, and then goes and excuses people that he thinks is part of his club.
It happens to be very popular among many quarters, and I don't participate in that fund. I was certainly treated badly. I don't participate, but I.
Oh, you're not getting enough? Poor little Donald. He doesn't take a salary, and he doesn't get anything from the fund. You've only grifted a couple $1 billion. I mean, you're doing really well financially for a guy who's not getting anything out of the deal.
I thought it would be very fair for people that spent years in prison, people that were treated so badly, for in many cases people that did absolutely nothing wrong.
Nada.
So I view that fund as a positive, and a lot of Republicans do too.
They do, those Republicans.
Not so many Democrats. And it's not only for that, it's for other things too.
Yeah, it's for your people, and it's not for the people that you hurt. And there's plenty of them, right? All right, so this guy's just fucking lost in his own bullshit. All right, so she's going to say something hilariously stupid here.
Friday night.
I know you haven't seen the film Seven, so forgive me for quoting this, but Brad Pitt...
How the fuck do you not know that she didn't see the film? How do you know she didn't see the film Seven?
Quote Brad Pitt at the end of the film, "What's in the box? Do we know what Jeanine Pirro was wheeling away from the White House there? Do officials often wheel large file boxes out?"
So I would assume Seven's a horror movie. I think my wife was telling me about it. And that, that was pretty creepy, and that would mean there's a dead body in this box. Here's Jeanine Pirro, right? She's leaving with a box. She's wearing red.
Meetings?
No, that was pretty unusual. I will say that our eagle-eyed team spotted when she was walking in that
Her eagle-eyed team spotted. Let's go back. Her eagle-eyed team spotted fucking Jeanine. They got an eagle-eyed team of cracked CNN reporters out there with their eagle eyes. It's funny because Kyle Dunnigan had the thing, that he does a character called Craig, and he the comedian, and he compared her to, he had some bit that he compared her to an eagle. Like she looks like an eagle. He put an eagle next to her. But that's, not about this. But you don't have eagle-eyed people over there at CNN.
pretty unusual. I will say that our eagle-eyed team spotted when she was walking in that a staffer was coming in with her and was wheeling that box in. So it's not clear to us yet what exactly was in there or, what all that entails. But I mean, this moment in and of itself was kind of a moment where we talked to a lot of officials today at the White House who were also themselves openly speculating about her future and what this looks like because of how angry the president was with her. But today reporters attempted to ask him multiple times if he was second thinking or regretting putting her inside.
Yeah, she's done. I would assume that's her shit. She's had her packing. Like with one of those, like having like they used to do in the old time where they'd have a stick and they'd have a bag with all their shit. Like a hobo going down the street. She's like a hobo in it. Okay, so this guy, talking about that fund, he was one of the guys giving it to Fauci, and now he's giving it to the president.
Was saying as recently as yesterday that he likes the idea of this fund, that he wants to find some way to pay these people. Does that concern you as someone who's tried to fight against getting this anti-weaponization fund in place?
Well, there's nothing we could do to rein in the president when he said he likes the fund and he wishes it still exists, but the fact of the matter, it's dead. And that's all we could do under these circumstances.
He likes the fund. They're reining it in. That's the kind of thing. You've got to rein the guy in. He's got to be fucking handled because he's so fucked in the head. Is that what you're saying? He's so fucked in the head you have to rein him in. He doesn't think he's fucked in the head is these two fucking gay dudes. It's Andrew Covert and his little pal Blake. It's a cartoon. Andrew Covert and his little pal Blake. What do you got to say, you guys? You two twinks.
Once again, we have conservatives, so-called conservatives, betraying the base, going against everything that put Donald Trump in office.
Yeah, Donald Trump's done that.
And it is so shameful that it deserves an entire 8 minutes calling it out for what it is. A betrayal of base voters, of what we voted for, and we are sick of it. So, Senator Curtis, I do not like your future political prospects. Let's leave it at that.
Let's leave it at that. Andrew Covert and his little pal Blake. You know, what's hilarious about this is we know Trump is actually doing this. Trump's saying fuck you to the voters, and he's lost all these people. And no matter what he does, these guys will never call him out. I mean, it's just, pathetic, even though they did throw Trump a little bit under the bus with J.D. Vance. But they have no following. They're fucking completely impotent, other than being twinks and two beta males sharing one testicle. They're influencer impotent. They have nothing. They have no influence on other people. Nobody goes to them. Like, even the people that don't shit on them in the comment section are saying shit like, we miss Charlie, or, this some other thing. Almost never do they get a compliment or somebody saying, oh, you guys are doing a good job. Like, they don't have fans at all. They don't have it, like, a sparse number. Like, it's in it probably only family members and shills. And their whole thing has gone south. Like, it's gone away from whatever. Charlie was a piece of shit, and they've gone even farther, backwards. I mean, he was beginning to at least confront Israel on some shit, but they've reversed all that stuff. They're totally out of touch with everybody. And, like, nobody thinks that Trump is living up to his promises, other than like a 10, 20% of dumb fucks out there. I mean, they might not ever vote for Democrats, and they might still vote for Trump, but no one's enthusiastic about it like they were. This person wrote a good, why is Mr. Blinky in his lip gloss yelling at us? He does have some lip gloss going on there, so, all right, that's funny. Speaking of eagle eyes here.
You and I are going to have a wonderful time, America. Sit back and relax, Donald. Try to enjoy yourself.
Boom, Donald. He's getting cocked.
Fantastic. Don't mind if I do.
You like what you see, you little bitch?
Yeah, so that's, look at Donald going for it. They're really, we got another Lego video here. Okay, so, I did these Lego videos before, and somebody copyrighted them. It's obviously not Iran. Somebody copyrighted the audio to this song. I don't know. I don't know if these Lego videos are all being done by Iran or they're being done by other people, but I'm pretty sure this one is done by Iran. It's unfortunate they copyrighted the audio because it was the best song that they had. They were revenue sharing, but I'm not sharing revenue, when I could just... I'm just going to talk over this thing here. But what this one was good about, this... they go after other Islamic countries, calling them fake Muslim, because they've sold out to Zionism and Israel and, to some extent, America, the dollars and these things, right? They talk about how the... ISIS was, created things that I believe, right? These are things that I've believed and I think pretty much proved, like, as much as I can. Those are the Islamic countries selling themselves out for Zionism and American stuff. This one's called We Don't Bow to Baal. And it's probably the best song, maybe one of the best songs, if not the best song. So they're talking about these fake Muslims powered by Zionism. And they talk about how the ISIS they never attacked Israel. Like, they're supposed to be Islamic, whatever it is. And they said if Jesus came back today, the first thing he'd do is, like, go over and turn over the tables like he did in the Bible in the temple, in the synagogue. Because he'd go to Tel Aviv. So if Jesus was alive today, first place he'd go and hit would be Tel Aviv for their bullshit, whatever they're doing there. So they had some great things, and they said ISIS was a controlled opposition. ISIS was created by the Western culture, and so it's the images are good and some of the ideas are good, and it's a good rap video, but they copyrighted it on me, so I'm doing this instead. And again, I don't know if they did or some other piece of shit did, which often happens. And then, I had one where I just left it up and I didn't bother editing it out. and it came out that, these people were claiming copyrights they didn't have, which is a big fucking problem. People suck so fucking bad. But anyways, this was a good new addition to the Lego series. And because of this person, before they said that someone copyrighted the thing, and they were taking the revenue from my video, which sucked. And then then YouTube found out these people were fraudulent, and people disputed it because they did it with other people. And that happens occasionally where somebody claims a copyright they don't have. It happens quite frequently. But it sucks, and people just suck so bad, like I said. Anyways, it makes me more hesitant to include these videos in videos I make because I don't have to, right? Like I got other things to cover. But this was one of their better videos. It had a lot of interesting ideas in it. All right, so let's go to the other stuff here. All right, my wife and I just ate dinner. She's going to do some outside work, so I got a little extra time to work on this video. It's still whatever the fuck it is here. It's August 4th here. And so it's time for a little commercial break.
Honey, your mouth and eyes are moving again.
Fuck, honey, you fucking spastic fuck. Stop it. Fucking stop moving your eyes and mouths and shit.
Really? Yeah. Let's go talk to your doctor. We learned that
because he's got tardive dyskinesia. He's a tard. He's got the tardive. Movements in your face, hands, and feet can be caused by some mental health medications. So you're taking mental health medications. It's causing you to have tardive dyskinesia, or these symptoms. I don't know which, right?
uncontrollable movements are called tardive dyskinesia, or TD, and were caused by Derek's mental health medications. Derek was
so TD, this tardive thing, Tardo, what is the guy? The guy's name was whatever he was. There's a guy on the other day. So you're taking mental health medications, and they cause a fucking movement disorder. And so they got a studio. I wondered if that has any side effects.
Prescribed Austedo XR, a
Austedo.
once daily extended release pill for adults. Austedo XR can significantly reduce TD movements with some.
Okay, so maybe like not taking your mental health medication. Again, not recommending anything to you crazy fucks out there. But
I'm seeing a response as early as 2 weeks, and he can stay on his mental health medications.
He can stay on them. He doesn't have to go off those wonderful mental health medications that cause you to have fucking spastic movements.
Austedo XR can cause depression, suicidal thoughts, or actions in patients with Huntington's disease.
Holy shit. So here, let's go back to that one. So now you got this. So you've taken your mental health medication that also can cause these things. But this is what it causes.
Austedo XR can cause depression, suicidal thoughts, or actions in patients with Huntington's disease.
Okay, well, only if you have Huntington's disease.
Pay close attention to and call your doctor if you become depressed, have sudden changes in mood, or have suicidal thoughts.
Oh, you have suicidal thoughts. Make sure you call your doctor. You know, because it might be a studio.
Don't take if you have liver problems, are taking Reserpine, tetrabenazine, or valbenazine.
Yeah, you want those fucking things mixing together.
Austedo XR may cause irregular or fast heartbeat or abnormal movements. Seek help for fever, stiff muscles, problems thinking or sweating,
Problems thinking or sweating. Problems thinking or sweating.
Side effects include inflammation of the nose and throat, insomnia, and sleepiness.
All those things are really bad, especially insomnia. There's a stat. Look, this guy, I mean, he's no longer having spasm. He can put a fucking marshmallow in his double fork and eat this corn syrup while he slowly has suicidal thoughts.
If you see TD, ask about Austedo XR.
Boom. Okay, we will. That just, I mean, that what you sold to me. I mean, the side effects and all the marshmallow thing alone. Okay, so back to this bullshit.
Extraordinary photograph that emerged over the weekend. And you were in this picture. It was at Tucker Carlson.
You're right there next to fucking Tucker Carlson, the fucking piece of shit show. And this frickin' tardio dyskinesia. And this motherfucker here, and I don't know who the rest of these people are.
Home. You're in there with Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, Tucker. What was this?
There are three other fucking unknown fucks snuck in there.
There is word that you're all planning as Marjorie Taylor Greene put it, a new political movement. What is the movement? Could it be an actual party? What was going on?
You know, things are in the initial phases right now, but there is a
Yeah, there's nothing there. You don't have the fucking votes. You could get a candidate in there. There's no money. There's no anything. Just fucking stop. It's silly. You guys are silly little fucking people. You should realize by now there's no political solution. The fact that we could shit out a Donald Trump and a fucking Joe Biden in back-to-back years and a Trump before him after having Obama, right? We haven't had fucking good presidents my whole fucking life. Like, my first conscious memory of a president is Richard Nixon. I mean, Jimmy Carter maybe was okay. I don't know. My mom liked him. I mean, I was too young to make my own decision. I met him. I shook his hand. Seemed like a nice guy, whatever. But, I mean, it didn't seem like he had a good presidency. Ronald Reagan was a fucking actor and a total tool. George W. Bush sucked, right? And fucking Clinton, right? Like, fuck. And then who came after Clinton? George W. Bush. And then Obama, Trump, Joe Biden, and Trump again. Like, that's my presidents, like my lifetime. And so, JFK died the year before I was born, when I was in utero. And there was Lyndon Baines Johnson and then Nixon. Or Ford, whatever, I don't fucking know. Ford after him. So there's been nothing but shitty presidents my whole life. I don't know if there's ever a good one, but certainly not in my lifetime. And so, but despite the presidency, politics has never worked. Politics always goes from not great to horrible. Not bad or not horrible. I mean, certainly never good. Politics isn't good. It's just the nature of it. And then it just degrades, right? So it's one of those things that just gets worse. As the country gets worse, that's how it works. Especially as the country gets richer, like America got richer, as an empire grows, the politics gets worse. Everything gets worse. Immorality sets in. Okay, so this fucking guy.
Finding and fixing their leaders and their military leaders. Flying over Tehran, flying over Iran, flying over their capital, flying over the IRGC, Iranian leaders looking up.
Are they looking up? Are they fucking looking up all the time? Are they standing on the street with your drones and your fucking radar and your fucking satellite technology? Are they standing on the street just looking up, waiting for it to be fucking bombed? Is that what they're doing?
And seeing only U.S. and Israeli air power every minute of every day until we decide it's over. And Iran will be able to do nothing about it. B-2s, B-52s, B-1s, Predator drones, fighters, controlling the skies, picking targets. Death and destruction from the sky.
It's just pathetic, right? Like, you have a better military than Iran does. Israel and Iran are about the same. I think Israel's number 20 and Iran's like 21 or something like that. Whatever, in terms of ranking of militaries. They're close. But America's number one. Like, America should be able to, out technology and out fucking, in terms of how much money we spend on our weaponry and all the rest of it, right? So it isn't a fair fight. And they still have the Strait of Hormuz closed, which you guys keep on lying about, but then whining about at the same time. And so, like, only a fucking complete piece of shit has to talk this way, right? Like, nobody's on board with this. Only the dumbest of fucks over on Fox.
All day long. We're playing for keeps.
You're playing for keeps? You're playing for fucking keeps. You're killing motherfucking children and shit, bro. I hope you're playing for keeps.
Our warfighters have maximum authorities granted personally by the president and yours truly.
Who's that? Who's yours truly? Is that you?
Our rules of engagement are bold, precise, and designed to unleash American power, not shackle it.
She doesn't shackle American power. What a little bitch. Fucking look at this little cunt here.
This was never meant to be a fair fight.
It wasn't. It was never going to be a fair fight. Exactly. Way to be a fucking bully and just go and attack somebody without any provocation and then brag about it like a little cunt would do, right?
And it is not a fair fight.
Yeah, not like a little cunt like you has got all this weaponry.
We are punching them while they're down, which is exactly how it should be.
Exactly. What are you talking about? You hear yourself? Like, exactly how it should be. Again, they didn't do a fucking thing. They did not attack anybody, right? The idea that they might have a nuclear weapon, which was already fucking dealt with, and they've been talking about, or Israel's been talking about for 30 years. Again, even if they had a nuclear weapon, they wouldn't use it unless, they wanted to face self-destruction. But this isn't about that at all, right? So this is about something completely different, about Israel wanting to be the superpower in that region. And to do that, they have to take down Iran. And Jesus fucking Christ. Speaking of worthless Fox News pieces of shit, listen to this dude.
So Democrats, you got to nip this in the bud now. Because if the socialists get a foothold in November, they could end up being the dominant force in the party for the next 40 years. And the end goal, it's clear. Forced scarcity for all.
Okay, before they say this here, that's never going to fucking happen. Shut the fuck up. Like, this is just to scare fucking dumb fuck people who watch dumb fuck Fox News, right? This is for dumb fucks who watch Fox News. The Democrats suck. I mean, they shit out Joe Biden. They just suck at the whole thing. It's like they're the losers. Like they're like the team that plays the Harlem Globetrotters. Like they're just always seem to lose. They don't have fucking a platform right now. All they have is, well, at least we're not Trump. But the one thing the Democrats have done better than the Republicans is they keep their crazies down to a minimum. They got a few crazies that provide left-right cover. It's all performative. AOC and a couple of, radical liberal people. But for the most part, they've always been a centrist party, as has been the Republicans. But every once in a while, the Republicans go full right-wing fucking nut job. We've never had anybody that's really liberal. Obama wasn't liberal. He was a centrist. Hillary Clinton isn't liberal. Joe Biden certainly wasn't liberal. They're always centrists. Their liberal part, their crazy part, their extreme part of their party is, it's reserved for Portland and Seattle, San Francisco, some of these liberal cities out west, liberal cities across the country that have some liberal, but even then it's usually centrist. And you can't really do anything in politics without business money, without money from banks, without money from business. And so for national politics, you need to be more of a centrist. There's never going to be socialism or communism unless the powers that be want to fucking roll that shit out as a way to divide the country as it goes to shit. But it's not a real thing, right? It's not. The Democrats aren't in threat of becoming socialists, but they're a threat of having nothing better after we get rid of Trump and having just another piece of shit. And they might roll out some of that bullshit sex stuff, the trans stuff. I mean, who knows how it's going to swing back? Censorship, that's the stuff that's going to happen, right? The stuff that happened before happened last time.
It's clear. Forced scarcity for all, except their friends and their cronies, and then taking a wrecking ball to the constitutional structures that gave them a chance to sell their noxious views.
Yeah. That's what Trump is doing. I mean, there's going to be forced scarcity brought in by Trump. Trump's collapsing the economy, looting what's fucking left of it, just as Joe Biden did. And he's taking a wrecking ball to the Constitution. He's a fucking dictator. And, for a guy who claims he needs special rules because the IRS has been out to get him his whole life. Like, Jesus Christ. This fucking piece of shit. Okay, so I was telling my wife about this last night. And it occurred to me, because I said this stuff about the Democrats, but I forgot to say, this is how bad the Democrats don't want, how they police themselves from their own crazy fucks. Like, they do that better than the right wing. Because Trump's crazy fucks are just running amok. So Bernie Sanders was going to win the Democratic nomination, both against Hillary Clinton, and they rigged it against him. Like, they out and out rigged. Donna Brazile came in as the interim head of the DNC after whatever the fuck her name was flamed out, right? And she found paperwork that showed that Hillary Clinton bailed out the DNC. Barack Obama left the DNC $12 million in debt. And so Hillary Clinton said, well, I'll bail you guys out. I mean, DNC's in, they're like struggling. She has all this money. But you guys have to give me the inside information. I have, when we have debates, I need to choose the questions. I mean, just rigging the primary for herself. And Donna Brazile said she had to call Bernie Sanders and say this stuff. They fucked you, right? They rigged it against you. Bernie Sanders was like, do you think they'll beat Trump? And she was like, well, the polls say she will, but like there was no enthusiasm in her crowds. And so that was the whole thing. She wrote that in a book. And then when Bernie Sanders was kicking the shit out of Biden, Biden flamed out. Biden was the front runner the whole time. And they didn't have any like good candidates. They had picked Biden anyway from the beginning. And then the first two primaries, the one in New Hampshire and Iowa, he got his ass handed to him, right? And he came in fourth and fifth amongst all these candidates. And Pete Heggs, whatever his name is, Pete, who's this, whatever, that guy from the gay dude from Notre Dame, like whatever, he's the mayor of whatever that city is in Indiana. He won one and Bernie Sanders won the other. And Bernie Sanders was the only one left with any money and enthusiasm. And Democratic senators came out on CNN and MSNBC, Democratic Party leaders and senators and important people, and said, no way Bernie Sanders is winning this. They were talking about like that. And so they got that guy Pete, whatever his name is, and Amy Klobuchar to withdraw. They both, they had both beaten Biden in the primaries. And they threw their support behind Biden. But they left Elizabeth Warren in, who was taking she was running on Bernie Sanders' platform, a very liberal platform. And she took some of his votes. And they got him to win in South Carolina, Biden. They got that guy, Clyburn, too, was a very powerful politician there in the Democratic Party, to boost him and get him over the hump in South Carolina. And then it was rigged from there on out, right? Like he had, more money. And, Biden, like nobody wanted him. But there was just him and Bernie Sanders. And so, and they made sure, they were like, we're not going to let socialists win the fucking, party nomination because the person's going to lose to Trump. There's a fear of communism, socialism still in America. And so the Democrats have always made sure that their liberals don't win. I mean, very recently with Bernie Sanders, but over the years. Whenever Howard Dean was going to win, he was the first one to use the internet. Like nobody knew how to use the internet. Howard Dean was this governor for whatever it was, right? Some fucking Maine or New Hampshire or some shit like that. And he, learned to use the internet. Then he had that Scream, which was taken out of context because like they used a noise canceling mic, but the crowd was like into it. And then he made this, they call it the Dean Scream, and they memed him. But he was a liberal guy, and the Democratic Party didn't want RFK Jr. They rigged it against him. They don't want anybody who's going to be like radical. They always get some mainstream piece of shit. And so, all these Republicans that are talking about communism and socialism, the Democrats are like, they control their crazies, their extremists better than the Republicans do. Because, most of the Democrats and the independents that are going to push the Democrats over, there's more Republicans than there are Democrats. They're just that there's more, the Democrats have more of a big tent. And so, like, there's more, just right-wing people. They make up about 40% of the voting bloc. And, the real, like, passionate Democrats make about 30, so it's like 30-something. It's like, I don't know the exact numbers. And so the Democrats always have to be more moderate. And they know it. So, like, this thing is just fucking silly. Mayo Clinic is being sued by his former AI compliance lead, who alleges the hospital system concealed its AI tool's 67% error rate at the expense of patients per futurism. I guess that is the article. Sounds about right. So here it goes. Former mayor, the lawsuit is wrongfully retaliated against her after she raised safety and patient privacy concerns. So here it says, former Mayo Clinic Director of AI Compliance Lead Tracy Tomiko Eto filed a federal whistleblower lawsuit against the health system's rushed AI deployment concealed a 67% error rate. So they're using AI to help people get fucking diagnose themselves over the internet, and it was 67% of the time wrong, according to the person running it. The Maya tool staff allegedly deleted unflattering test results, mischaracterized capabilities, and tried to disguise an error rate as high as 67% in the initial digital assistant. The complaint states leadership bypassed institutional review boards and mishandled patient de-identification process to maintain a competitive advantage and speed up research. Like, holy shit. It's really bad. It sounds like just totally allopathic medicine at its finest. Okay, so let's end with this piece of shit.
So, Senator, certainly, though, there were many, Wall Street Journal editorial board included, who thought that was an opportunity, that hearing, to get more answers, and it instead devolved into what it was. But one of your criticisms of Dr. Fauci is that, in your estimation, he said one thing publicly, where he sort of downplayed the virus, and one thing privately, where he acknowledged, its seriousness. Well, President Trump did the exact same thing, that he told the American people there January, February, March 2020 that this was something that would blow over, while we know, because he had transcripts and audio recordings with calls with Bob Woodward, the journalist, where he said to Mr. Woodward, this is far more serious. So does President Trump...
Okay, so first, Morning Joe sucks cock, because, literally and figuratively, because, I'm just a little bit, I feel pretty good, but I'm a little bit, I'm not saying irritated, but at least it's just these pieces of shit, right? Now, like, you guys aren't covering Fauci's, like, this is what Aaron Rodgers said over and over again, how they went after him and Kyrie Irving and everybody else, and they talked about it endlessly on ESPN, and elsewhere, and just how horrible they were, and they were killing people by not getting vaccinated, all the smears and all the bullshit, which, turned out to be false pretty much right away, but now it's clearly false. And Fauci taking the fifth when he had to be pardoned. But it's like, you can't fucking back that guy anymore. But, on Morning Joe, we already saw Mika, defend Fauci and go after Trump. And here he is going after Trump. Now, Trump's a piece of shit who rolled out the vaccine, but you can go after Trump for so many other things. His daily fucking spoutings of fucking selfishness and narcissism and grifting. This is about Fauci. Fauci fucked everybody, and so did the medical community and the media, and people have really fucking suffered. This is where people really suffered. Like, people talk about immigration, and some people suffer because of immigration. If an illegal immigrant kills someone in your family, you're suffering. If you don't get a job because illegal immigrants took your job, you're suffering. If taxpayer dollars are going to illegal immigrants and you're paying for that, you're suffering not as much. But COVID really wrecked people's lives, which we'll get into in a moment. But, stop with this. Go after fucking Fauci. Bury this motherfucker, right? I mean, he's already pardoned. So anyway, here.
Deserve that same level of scrutiny as you want Dr. Fauci to face?
I think the main culpability of Dr. Fauci is that he advocated for a decade before this the funding of these labs. He funded a lab in the Netherlands that mutated the avian flu and made it more dangerous. The whole scientific community, led by a scientist at MIT, set up this Cambridge working group and were very, very critical, said it shouldn't have been funded and it shouldn't have been published. There are people who are nonpartisan. There's a Stanford professor by the name of David Relman who advises government, is very knowledgeable in these affairs, and said that the research in the Netherlands on the avian flu should have never occurred. So he has made mistake after mistake, and the idea or the decision to fund this dangerous research in China, I think may be one of the worst, if not the worst, medical public health decision in a lifetime.
Well, Senator, along that line then, in your argument, should everyone involved with this sort of research, this gain-of-function research, should they all these people, face potential criminal investigation?
I think they should all apologize, and I think they all are culpable in many ways. Maybe not legally.
So, Senator,
maybe not legally. What the fuck are you talking about? They should apologize? What a fucking cunt. They should fucking apologize. That's what you're saying? I mean, I'm suffering from post-COVID shit. Like again, I'm not a victim. I'm all that shit. But like, these guys fucked me and so many people over just with COVID. All of us who have suffered something with COVID. I'm even getting really, really sick, but it's not going away, the after effects. And then all the people who have suffered from vaccines. And we're talking about people who died, people who had family members die or suffering, debilitating, no longer being able to function, chronic illnesses, all the shit that's come out of this. Because they decided to fuck around with a virus and make it more powerful and turn it into a biological weapon and release it to fucking the world. And it wasn't accidental. Fuck you. And so you did all that shit and you want them to fucking apologize? And I'm not like, again, I take everything that's coming from God and I don't get all like judgmental, like I have to feel like I'm going to get angry and, wish bad things on people. I don't give a fuck. But I mean, that's what you want. Like, if you were going to hold them accountable, if our system was going to hold people accountable for doing what they did, these are war crimes. These are fucking crimes against humanity. I mean, this is like shit where they, I mean, capital punishment, whatever your society has, should be, like, there's nothing worse than what they've done here. And how many people it's hurt. Like all the stuff that went, closing down the economy, how many kids starved. I think it was 25,000 kids were starving a day in these poor countries because when you close down a global economy, a lot of these places couldn't feed themselves. They're impoverished places and they need trade. And they were fucking devastated by this thing. I mean, so many people have suffered. So, like if you were responsible for millions of people dying, all you have to do is fucking sorry about that, you guys. My bad. Sorry. Fuck you talking about, right? And they're not even going to apologize. No one's going to be held accountable. Fauci got pardoned, and he's being whatever. They rolled him out again. He'll disappear. He's made millions. Him and his family can go do whatever the fuck they want. They can. I mean, he can't go out in public. Somebody might fucking tell him what a piece of shit he is, or whatever, if he can stomach that. But no one else, the big pharma, all the other people, all the government people, all the media people that went along with this, everyone is, and the word, none of them are going to be held accountable. And you're saying we should make them say they're sorry at least. Jesus Christ, what a cunt. Today's Wednesday, August 5th. The video's going up tonight. I have this one voiceover to do. I want to talk about some meditative spiritual stuff at the end of this thing. There was a comment that came in. Here it is. This is this piece of shit. So, the video's called This Fucking Guy. And I've got a few comments to get to, and then why are you talking about COVID? They needed a reset in 2019. There was a seminar called 2001. This was called 201. I'm aware of this thing. What do we do if we have a worldwide pandemic? Bill Gates was there, doctors, lawyers, etc. China was the country where it was started. I don't need to go any further. Like, this is what I called flubies. And there's still some of them around, like this guy. Let's fuck him, that claimed that COVID wasn't real. And, and he's basing it on some seminar. Like, there's one piece of fucking, I've seen a million of these things out there where people, there's a meeting and, and first of all, like, you get some information about this meeting, which just might be disinformation, or it might have really happened. And does that mean that they didn't release a virus or not? And so those of us who got sick, you think that we all just had, people said you had the flu. That's why I called these people the flubies, right? I called the QBs like they're newbies, right? People are calling Q-tards, but, I thought QBs was better because they're people who are new to critical thinking and they're new to the truth community. They don't really have the abilities. They don't have the capabilities. And flubies are the same way. Like you were convinced early on that COVID wasn't real, and then you just went with it, and you just bought into some bullshit piece of information. But those of us who had it, and a number of you guys have had it, and some people had it, it wasn't that bad. But the people who had it, there was kids' toes who were turning purple. Kids were showing up in pediatricians' offices with purple toes and no other symptoms. People lost their taste buds. They couldn't taste any food for like months, weeks. But those of us who had it, and it was really weird. It was the weirdest disease. I can't even call it being sick. And I had it early on. And then I had all these people accusing me of like being a shill. Because, because they convinced themselves it wasn't real with some bogus information, some dumb fucks on the internet telling them so, right? And, this is, people are just worthless. Like, it's just, there's nothing there. You know, there's nothing worth saving. Like, you know, I mean, there's, you know, potential in human beings, and like maybe we rise up to our potential, we go to another level. You know, I've seen it, you know, the spiritual stuff in the Sage-Mark meditation. You know, I've experienced it personally. I've seen it in other people who are brought up to a higher level. But, you know, people have a tendency to fall. Almost every saint, every spiritual person, including Jesus, they rise up spiritually and then they fall. It is it's a bummer. You know, you get to like Jesus's best stuff that he had came when he was, you know, when he was at his peak, and then there's the whole crucifixion, the other things that happened, you know, all this stuff. And, you know, then towards the end of his life, he just lost, he was bummed out by the people. Like, he just got bummed out. Well, first what happens is someone rises up to a high spiritual level and people start digging them, right? People start like worshiping them, and they lose their shit. They end up, you know, getting sucked into their fans' idea of them, and they get away from the idea of God. They stop working for God and they start working for their followers. And, you know, they start feeling themselves. You know, like, it's just same thing that happens with fame, you know, and that's a form of spiritual worship in some ways, like making a god out of somebody. And they stop realizing that, you know, the humility and service for God is what brought them up to this higher level. And they start becoming like, they radiate light and love and things. So people want to be around them because their energy is so good. You know, they give off this energy. So people who are spiritual, you know, when they're noticed, it's better when they're not noticed. You know, it's better for them. But when they get noticed, then people start following them. And if there's any, you know, hidden character flaws and, you know, some latent problems and issues, egoism and, you know, things that are there, weaknesses, the power from the spiritual energy and also the power from having people, you know, all these people worship you, end up turning against them, like it just does. Like, it's something that happens. You know, these things get powered up by, you know, they get nurtured, they get nutrition from all this energy, your negative tendencies, your negative character qualities. And if you don't clean them out, you don't recognize them, and you don't, you know, do something about it, they end up flourishing, and your ego becomes big. And so it's a whole thing that happens. It's an unfortunate situation. And there's also something called spiritual gravity, which I don't really fully understand how it works, but it just, when you rise up to a higher level, it just pulls you down again. And so human beings have potential. We could all rise up to a higher level of consciousness. I know this for a fact. And they talked about all these indigo kids, and there's going to be some, you know, kind of movement spiritually, you know, energetically. And, you know, I believe that could happen. I fully believe that could happen. But, you know, you look around, just look at my video today. You know, it's just so degraded. Human beings are so degraded. We're going we're getting less. We're getting worse. You know, technology is making us weaker and more dependent, more entitled. And just, you know, you see what's going on in the world. So, you know, the comments and the truth community isn't like something where you're going to feel inspired by human beings, right? You know, people just don't have the ability to reason for themselves. Like, you know, when COVID first came out and I didn't have it, there's a narrative that it was just a hoax, right? And you don't know until you get it, or you see somebody who gets it, or you experience it. You have no idea whether it's real or not. Like, I say that about everything. I don't know if there's a real war in Iran. I don't know if that thing's going on. I don't even know if there's a country in Iran. I mean, I did meet Iranian people, and so, you know, when I was in the ashram in India, there was, you know, a number of people did the meditation. And so, you know, and I know that there is an Iran, you know, basically. But, you know, you don't know anything, right? Even with the flat earth and these things. Like, you don't know what's real, what's not, and like you're lied to about everything. And that's part of the problem. We live in a deceptive world, and the world itself just based in it being Maya or illusion. You know, the Sanskrit word for illusion is Maya. That material life is illusionary. And then there's just all the lying. And so you don't know anything, right? So you don't know if COVID is real or not until you get it. And then you're like, oh, it's fucking real. And so, you know, I can say it was real. I got it 3 times. And the person says, you know, you didn't. Like, you didn't get it because I believe it doesn't exist. Like, it's just stupid. I don't care what you believe. Like, you can go fucking be a dumb fuck somewhere else, right? Don't tell me I didn't have fucking COVID. Don't tell, what do you think? I mean, like, I fucking made it up, I'm hallucinating, or I'm just a shill or whatever. Like, don't tell me that. Like, I don't want to hear that shit, because I had it. It's really one of the worst things when people say something didn't happen to you, because their belief system won't allow them. Like, you want to be different than the people that control the system, then don't tell people, don't go up to somebody and say, hey, that thing didn't happen to you, that you say it happens, that you say happened, because my belief system won't allow that thing to happen, right? Like, you're just like the fucking people who control the system. You're another Trump, right? You're just a worthless piece of shit that is trying to bend reality to your belief system. Like, that's the opposite of what should happen. Your reality should be flexible based on what God's willing to show you and what you want to see and what you're strong enough to be able to see, right? I talked about how in the Mahabharata there is Arjuna and Krishna. Arjuna and Krishna are like best friends. But on a soul level, Arjuna is the ego of Vishnu, and Krishna is the soul of Vishnu. And so they're connected on a soul level. And Arjuna is like the only really good archer, and like these archers had the ability to do mantras and turn these arrows into nuclear weapons. It's like probably a metaphor for some kind of technology they have, whatever it was. But Arjuna is one of the, is the guy who's got to kill all the, his relatives and people he loved, his teacher, the guy who taught him how to, there's good guys on the bad guys team. The villains team has a lot of great people and people that Arjuna loved, and, his family members and things like this. And he's got to kill them all. Like, he's got to kill all these people that, his elders, and he throws down his bow and he can't fucking do it. And Krishna, said that he wouldn't pick. Krishna has these various weapons he can use, like spiritual weapons. But he said he wasn't going to lift a finger in the thing, but he was going to drive Arjuna's chariot. Like, they had these chariot drivers. And they drive the chariot and they shoot bows like these fucking, these spiritually charged arrows and shit at each other. And Arjuna's throws down his bow, and without him, his team's going to lose. His side's going to lose. And so Krishna shows him his soul. He shows them his true self. And it's terrifying to Arjuna. It's all these lifetimes and, things that were done, and, all these times that he had to, do some kind of destructive work, plagues or whatever it might be, right? Vishnu's the cosmic functionary in charge of preservation and has to do a lot of shit that, is inconceivable to the normal human being. And Arjuna freaks out. He goes, I'll kill anybody you want. Just don't ever show me that again. His ego did not want to see his soul, which is a great, example, because people don't want to see their true spiritual nature. I say it all the time. People are more afraid of their potential saint than they are of their potential demon. Like, everyone can be a demon with their ego running amok. Everyone can be a Trump where their ego just goes, off and their soul is disconnected from it. Although, with Trump, I think he's doing God's work, so I think their soul is maybe involved. I don't know. It's hard, you can't speak for other people. But anyways, you get the idea that people can turn into a demon based in their egoism. But they can also embrace their soul nature, their spiritual nature, and turn into a saint. And people are more scared of turning into a saint than they are of turning into a demon. Because that's just the way it is, right? And so that's humanity. And so you have these dumb fucks who, they're told something and they believe something, and then they try to make the facts fit their feelings. There's no flexibility in their ability to change suit. And it really exists in the truth community. People buy into some bullshit narrative that oftentimes is disinformation by some shill, and then they think that that's it, and they've made their decision, and then new information comes in, and they glitch the fuck out, and they can't deal with it, right? And that's why the truth community has just showed it's, because it's just the same as everything else. Most people don't have the ability for critical thinking skills and, a higher nature to embrace some kind of level of, truth that's unpalatable to them. And also, it always comes back to, are you willing to change? It's not about changing Trump or Biden or the liberals or the conservatives. It's about you changing personally. That's all you can control. and nobody wants to change. All right, so I had some comments here. There's one particularly I want to get to. I think this is it. Not hating at all, but it sounds like you missed some pretty big red flags with your ex there. Ha ha. I thought that was a humorous comment because I've talked about my exes like flipping the fuck out. But, and I've told this story in the Journey series long ago, this part of it. And so the thing about it is like I wouldn't say I missed the red flags because I saw them, and I don't think that I failed in some way because it was supposed to happen. But I would say like I wouldn't ever marry someone like that again or been with somebody like I could see it better afterwards. Like after the fact, I could see it with new people. I could see personality disorders and other things, right? And so the thing that happened was the reason that I got sucked into the situation, because I knew my ex was like a little bit fucked up, just in terms of meeting her. So when we met like the ashram one time, and she had kids around her and she had gray hair, and I just, like there's people who are not, you would never consider in your group of like social circle or, more importantly, like someone you would date. Like they're just like, different than you, or they're older than you, whatever it might be. And I could see that she wasn't really like me. She was Ivy League educated and she was like kind of a hippie. She was, I'm Generation X, like I'm the first year of Generation X, 1964. Generation X started, 1964. Some people consider themselves the last of the boomers. Some people were, like I consider myself the MTV generation. Also, I was born, at the end of the year. Like I was born in July, which is a little bit different than, towards the, whatever it is, the middle of the year. But I consider myself Generation X. And my siblings, my sisters and my brother were all boomers, right? And my oldest sister was a hippie, and my brother was a Vietnam vet. They had a different, whole thing. My brother was 17 years older than me. My sister, 10 years older. My youngest sister, 3 sisters, in the middle. And they were definitely a different generation, right? And my ex was definitely a boomer, like totally a boomer. And she was an oldest, I was the youngest, and my family ages very slowly. My grandparents all were in their 90s, and, people always think that we're younger than we are. So, there's all that. And so when I first met my ex, there was just like no way that there would be any sort of possibility like we would be together in any way, shape, or form. Like I didn't consider, I wasn't attracted to her, didn't consider her, she was already married too, so there was no anything, like there's no. So when we met, like she was the preceptor in charge. The United States had been broken up into like, I think 6 quadrants. It was either 4 or 6. It had to be 6 or maybe 8. I don't know. And there was 4 states in the, in the western part of the country. She lived in Colorado. I was in New Mexico, and then Nevada and Arizona, I think, were the other states. Maybe Utah. I'm not sure. And we were the only 2 preceptors. There's somebody that ended up being in Arizona. But there was nobody out there. There's no Sajmark people out there. So it was just us 2. And she was married, and her husband was kind of into it a little bit. And then he was later given a position. But he really wasn't, he ended up quitting as soon as they got divorced. So we had met briefly in the ashram. And then I came to visit them. And she was like overly forward and just, because she had this, borderline stuff where they're really intense, she's also a Scorpio or whatever. And she was like, because of being abused and, just being fucked up psychologically, she was, some people come on really strong when they have this kind of, personality configuration. And they're super intense and aggressive. Like one of the things for the borderline personality disorder, the Pete Davidson is a person with this, where they say I love you on the first kind of date, right there. And my ex was, not just in terms of like sexual relationships, but she would meet somebody and she would look at you like you were the greatest person alive, right? Like just whatever it was. And then they're very intense, and then they the person does something and they flip, right? They flip on you. Erica Kirk is a good example of this, right? Someone who's like she said she's a hugger, right? She's overly touchy-feely. So I would have normally just pushed somebody away who was like that. But because she was, there's things that happen to you when you have kids. You enter into your parent stage and you start putting on weight and you just change as a person, right? Like there's a difference between people who have kids or people get married, they enter into that phase of life, when they couple up. And my ex was, overweight. She had an issue with like her, whatever it was, like her thyroid. And, when she wasn't producing enough thyroid, they produce T1 and T3. And people who have like a lack of those two enzymes that are important to your survival, they, will put on weight. Like it affects your metabolism or whatever it might be. And just having kids, and we weren't like in the same kind of thing. Like there was no, like it was a generational difference. There was no chance. Like in my mind, there was no, I was not interested in, and it wasn't like it was a possibility. She was married. So because of that, my defenses were like down because there was no chance of us being anything more than, spiritual colleagues. Like there was no, there's a brother and sister relationship. There's a, when I say brothers and sisters, that's the kind of relationship everyone's supposed to have in the Sajmark system, and really the global family. It's an attitude where you look at people as like your siblings, and there's someone who's your spouse is your spouse, and like somebody will show up and you'll marry whatever. And she was really into Sajmark. That was the other thing. Like she was, smart. I mean, she was like she graduated from an Ivy League school. She was really smart academically, and she really knew Sajmark things, which I did as well. Not too many people read all the books. And so we could have conversations about Sajmark, and we were both working as preceptors to build, centers in the community out there in that part of the country, the Southwest. And so I drove up to Colorado. It was like a fucking fight. Those states are huge. So I was going through New Mexico. I was going up through Taos. These famous sort of vacation ski places, and she was up in like some rural town in Colorado. And her husband was like he was a teacher, but he was like an ex-comedian, and we got along fine. There was no, he was not really into the Sajmark. It clearly was, whatever it was. But I had no idea their marriage sucked. Like I didn't care and wasn't really. I just assumed they were both like Sajmark people. In Sajmark you just don't get divorced. Like they have arranged marriages in India, and you just if you get stuck with a shitty person, you get stuck with a shitty person. Like if your marriage is unhappy, they have a whole family set up, and divorce isn't, especially like from Master Charji, and he was an old school person. He grew up in the 20s in India, and you had these arranged marriages, and if you had a shitty marriage, you had a shitty marriage. It was good for you spiritually. Unless the person was blocking your spiritual evolution, you just, you're stuck with it. So, and they didn't appear to have any, like they weren't telling me, hey, our marriage sucks. Like there's none of that shit, right? And he had been in a car accident, and he was like, maybe some issues, like whatever they are, physical and mental issues, like there had been a head injury or something, and and so that was the only thing I knew, like he was struggling or whatever. And so like I didn't know that he wasn't really into the Sajmark system. My ex was certainly really into it, and so she read the same books that I did and knew the philosophy. So based in that philosophy, there was, their marriage was their marriage, and it was whatever it was, and we were there to work on building these centers and doing whatever. So I visited them like twice, and then we we're in phone contact, and maybe talked like once or twice a month, once a month, and he lost his job as a teacher, and they were living in a house like they'd come from like Denver to some rural place, and the house was part of his job, so they were basically going to be homeless, and she was going to move like to, I don't know, Kentucky or something, with where some other practitioners of the meditation were, people who I knew, like they were going to move. And my ex is like really deceptive, like whatever. Like I didn't know, well anyways, so they decided to move close to me instead. They moved, instead of moving, to this, they were going to build something with some people, some kind of hippie pipe dream kind of community thing. that never would have taken off because I know my ex just fails at everything, self-sabotages. And her husband was pretty fucked up. Like, beyond the accident, he had, like, real issues psychologically. They both did. They were both fucked, and I had no idea going into it. I barely knew him. And so they moved close to me, and they moved to Albuquerque, and I was in Santa Fe. In Sajmark meditation, you would get an individual sitting once a week. In India, it might be every 2 weeks because there's a lot more people doing the practice. But in America, you know, especially because it's harder to meditate here, more materialistic in various ways. Not that India isn't materialistic. It's just, you know, it's more, there's just, the energy is more conducive to like a spiritual practice. And there's just more of like just history there. But in America, it was suggested you get a sitting once a week. And then you do group meditation every Sunday. And so they would come over to my house, I think on Sunday, and do group meditation. And then I would go up to see them like on my day off, whatever it was. I usually had one day off during the week because I work Saturdays. And I would, like I had Sundays and maybe Tuesdays off. And I would go to their house and get individual sitting for my ex, and I would give individual sittings to her and her husband. And, you know, because of his car accident, he was often like, you know, we would go do something. Like we would go, you know, hiking or doing something like that. And she had 2 kids. And, you know, I was always an uncle before that, right? You know, my older sisters and brother. And so I fell into that role, and, you know, I was helping out. And you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to take an interest in people. You know, something I hadn't done before. You know, I mean, I'd done it, you know, with my family to some extent. But, you know, like occasionally, like I'm not, you know, I was living pretty much a selfish life, a young person's life. But, I was supposed to take an interest. This family was suffering, like they were struggling or whatever, you know, financially and other ways. And based in the Sajmark system, I was supposed to invest in them, you know, try to prop them up as a preceptor, like you just do that. You try to help people out, you know, give them a boost. And so after a while, like in a short period of time, her husband would stay behind and take a nap on my bed. Like, you know, I lived in a shared house when we do the meditation, and he would, he would take a nap on my bed, and me and his wife would go out and, you know, go hiking with our kids. Like it was, you know, it was framed as he was struggling, you know, with the car accident things, and, you know, and more, like I started to do more work with the kids, you know, like step into that role because he was like clearly wanted out. Like but I didn't, you know, I didn't know at the time. And they were both wanted out. And, you know, I later understood about my ex. She hadn't been single since high school. Like she had one short period of time where she didn't have a man in her life. And she was like a person who would, you know, light a cigarette with her last cigarette, right? You know, like that was her dating life. And she was, you know, she was like a succubus. And, you know, when she knew that the other relationship was crapping out, she was already picking her next victim. And, you know, then the other person was more than eager to, like, the dude was more than eager to get out of the thing. And so he was wanting to get out. And she wanted out, but, like, they didn't tell me, right? This is, you know, there was things now I could see I didn't see, you know, that were there to see, but I didn't see them. And part of that was because I had an optimistic view of people who did the meditation, like, you know, people who read the books and did the philosophy. And he just, you know, failed to step up. And I kind of talked to him about investing more in the practice because she was passionate about it, you know, the meditation. And he was, you know, he was looking for somebody to get stuck with his nightmare. He wasn't really into being a dad or whatever. Like you could see that he was, you know, looking for an exit ramp. And she was looking for her next victim, and I was it, you know. And, you know, it was just like all these things came together, a lot of different factors. And like I said, you know, I wasn't interested. Like she was, you know, at a different stage of her life. I was still like I had my youthful, you know, bachelor body. You know, I was still physically the same way I was in my 20s. You know, I was in my early 30s, but, you know, I was young, and, you know, I hadn't started to put on weight yet, and you know, I mean, if people saw us, they would say we were probably 10 years apart. She was like 5.5 years older than me, but it was much different. Like it looked even more so. And when we finally got together, it kind of bothered me, like that part of it, the whole thing. but a variety of things unfolded. Whereas basically, put in a position where I would either have to like abandon a woman and her 2 kids on the side of the road, basically, because she didn't know how to drive. She couldn't drive because she had a head injury. An elevator door closed on her head, and I still don't know how the fuck that happened. And it was this kind of situation where I could either just walk away, and and a large part of me wanted to do that. And also in the Sajmark community, it was like a scandal. Like it was this whole thing that happened, and it's not a thing that Master Chargy would be happy about. So it was like the worst of worlds for me. Like I was pretty stressed out and freaked out about it. It was something that I felt like I got caught in a fucking trap, and to some extent I did. But it was supposed to happen. Like it was just supposed to happen. Like I got so much out of it spiritually. I mean, there was just all these things. And there was other things about it, So next thing you know, she was pregnant, and there was like, that's when and she had done a good job of hiding her crazy. Like I knew there were some things, but I was actually kind of admired how well she was dealing with her, parents being abusive to her and her dad sexually abusing her and her mom being, I didn't really know at the time her mom was actually worse than her sex offender dad, like, which is crazy. But she was really good at roping somebody in and hiding her crazy in the beginning. It was like once you were trapped, her crazy came out. Like, So, and people like that have a way of normalizing things that you find odd. They have a way of explaining things or whatever it is. And then, like if you listen to them and you get sucked into their crazy reality, and which is very easy to do when people are convincing. And if you have like I said, one thing that I didn't understand about the Sajmark teachings and the people that did the meditation, that very few people were applying these things to their lives. And whether they read the books or not is questionable. Indian people, more often than not, didn't read the books. And there were some that did. And people would talk about it, like how they were applying these things to their lives. And, in initial conversations, and you would talk about, people who read the books and the philosophy love to talk about it. Like I love to talk about with people, like people who are doing it. I love to talk about the meditation. I was so passionate about it. And, when I'd see people at gatherings and things, and they would basically be saying how much they were into it. And, they would get up and give talks about how they applied certain things to their lives, the meditation system, and then also the teachings. And, I thought everybody was doing that. And, they may have at a certain extent, but they are still pieces of shit. Like they, now I know that they're, although they, maybe aspire to embrace the teachings, that deep down, most of them really weren't doing it. Like not on a level that I thought everyone was, right? My ex had been doing the meditation 10 years before I had. And she was a part of this group of people. And, many of these people were doing it longer, and they were more mature, and they had families, and so they were ahead of me in terms of their life. And I just assumed they were all doing it better than I was. I thought that they were more into it, and they, and that turned out not to be the case. If you go into something with optimism and innocence or whatever it is, which is, the right way to go into things, and other people have a manipulative agenda, and they are being deceptive, and you're being honest, and you're being, whatever, forthright, and, you're not hiding anything or concealing anything, you're always going to get fucked over because, the other people have an agenda. Like my ex was highly manipulative and, thinking about things in a sinister way, right? In a way where, she was trying to rope me in, right? Or she was trying to, get out of her last failed situation. I mean, it happened to me later on, and, I felt the same way as her ex. And as fucked up as her ex was, like anybody could see, like she was a nightmare, like when she shows her nightmare side. And then I had the kids, and so I was just stuck in it, right? So, it's like I couldn't leave because of the circumstances. And I mean, it was a blessing, like the way it all went down, that I was able to be freed from the situation. And of course now, you can see people like that. Once you've seen it, it's easier to see it, right? So I think it's, people who are like, have good tendencies. And, and everyone has this when they're younger. And you don't really understand how fucked up people can be and how evil they can be. like how twisted they are and how fucking, dark they are, and how like they gravitate to the dark side. And there's lots of people like this, and people, who maybe started off innocent, but through, some sort of abuse, some sort of manipulation, broken hearts, and they get turned. They get, they get infected with this disease of, selfishness and manipulation and, all these things that people do. And you can see it's on full display now with Trump and the people in politics and on reality TV with these fucked up, these housewife shows and all these other things. But, people are very self-centered and egotistical and demonic in their presentation. And, people go into something like politics, or they go into some job or the world and, industry, Hollywood or whatever it is, and, just normal life. And they think people are good people who are working for, good things and have good internal worlds, and they want just good things for other people. And you don't realize how twisted and fucked up people are. And then you do, and like you can either be turned over to the dark side with them, or at very least you're going to be cynical and you're going to want to have nothing to do with it, because you're going to put up boundaries and all these things because people are, will let you down and are negative, right? And what, I'd seen the evil. Like I worked in treatment centers with, or at least I worked in one treatment center at the time, and I had, been aware of how fucked up people were. The treatment center was kids who had been abused, and I knew there was a lot of shit out there in the world. But I thought the people who did the meditation were somehow above it. And some of them were. Some of them are really good people, but, they really were doing the meditation the way it should be. But there are some people who, they were into it, but they also still retained their broken, twisted, fucking evil, villainous nature, right? And even with the cleaning and even with all the things that were going on in the meditation. And, some of these people are just real saints. And I met lots of, some of the best people. The best people I know were people who did the meditation, because, as good as you might have been as a person, when you had the transmission, the cleaning, it just enhanced these things. But in some people, it brought out their egoism, like I talked about earlier. It brought out, hidden character flaws and other things. And so it's just like anything else. Like it's, you'd hope that when something is a good, effective spiritual system, that all people would embrace their higher nature, but it just isn't the case. It's a disappointment, and, all the way to what Dodgy did, what he did. It was a bummer, but I just had to accept that the people in the organization, for the most part, were just like everybody else, even with all the benefits that they had, all the advantages they had with the cleaning and the transmission. The second master of the system thought if he cleaned people and transmitted to them long enough, they would just, at some point, they would give up their bullshit, and they would become, saints. And, it happened in some cases, but most cases not. So anyway, so that's why that happened with my ex. And because of that, and because of, even more so what happened, all these people turning on Master Chargy and embracing Dodgy, all that shit that happened, I have very little faith in people. I know that people aspire to be spiritual, aspire to embrace their spiritual nature, and they get into the Sajmark system and these other things, but there's things that have to be cleaned out. There's tendencies that have to be cleaned out, and there has to be a willingness to change, and people just don't have it. And, so that's why I've been, hesitant in the gratefulness meditation to take on too much, because I just, if you have to count on other people in this kind of situation, more often than not, they'll let you down. And that's happened in the truth community, failure in the truth community, failure across the board. There's lots of people that, there is something there. There's some positivity there. They want to make the world a better place. They want to change. They want, they want these things. They just can't rise above their bullshit, right? There's people who are just gone to the dark side, but there's lots of people who still have some light in them, still have some, aspirations of their higher nature, but they just can't break free, and the system isn't helping them out. Your bodies have been contaminated and twisted by toxic chemicals and weakened, and people's prana and their energy and their love energy is down, and they just can't, flip the switch and embrace their higher nature, because everything's pulling them in the other direction. Like there's a negativity in the system and the way the world is and just how people are, and it's almost impossible for people to break free of it. And, it's dragging us all down, and, until something changes and like a systemic collapses, like, one of those changes, the higher nature can't emerge. All right, I think there's a few more comments here. Just one more thing about this. Master Chargy, the third master of the system, used to say there was these 10 maxims, and he made a joke that there would be 11th one, and it was expect not and thou shalt not be disappointed. But if people were reading the literature, like, the kind of life you would live is your whole attitude would not be ambitious. You wouldn't be looking for position. You wouldn't be looking for fame and fortune. You wouldn't be looking for self-aggrandizement in any way. You wouldn't even be looking for like happiness. You would just be committed. All your energy, all your intentions would be to serve God. What can I do for God today? And, talking to God, communicating with God in a way that, you're not hearing shit you want to hear, but you're, looking for the truth of what you can do. Like, how can you help? And a lot of the service is stuff that people don't notice, and just, it happens on the spiritual field where you're doing work. I mean, as a preceptor, you would give sittings to people when they were like, when they weren't conscious or there. You'd work on them, clean them off. You would think about, pray for people, all these things, like, that nobody would know about, like things that you would just do in your spare time, like thinking about not even people who do the meditation. You would be cleaning and praying and transmitting and doing these things. Like, you were constantly working on a spiritual level, and people might figure it out or pick up on it, but they wouldn't, I mean, even then they wouldn't know it was coming from you. They would think it was coming from God. Like, some people would be sensitive to it, but they'd have no idea, right? And so, and I understood this, and as I became a preceptor, I read the preceptor books. It became more clear to me, and I was overwhelmed by that level of, where every thought you have, every action you have is to serve God. I'm like, there's just no way I'm gonna, you're not letting your mind wander and, and just be thinking about the things that you want to do, and, daydreaming about, whatever your vacation or, your, things to look forward to or whatever it might be. Like, so it's where all your thought force, all your energy would go into spirituality. And so, there was that. But in the system, there are a lot of people who were very ambitious, and Chargy went through it. Like, there's people who were pissed that he was Babaji's successor, and we see what happened with Daji. People who wanted something, they wanted that position, they wanted to be preceptors, they wanted this, they wanted that. And they were always angling for things and, egotistically. And I didn't understand that in the beginning, and it became more and more clear to me over the years. And, it's a real bummer because, I mean, these people had been doing the meditation years before I did. And like on the surface, they did sacrifice, and they did, they did work, and they did give sittings, and they did all these things. Like, there was some good stuff there. But, they never gave up their egotistical attitudes, and I was kind of bummed when I fucking realized it. Like, I was like, oh, these people, like, fucking, they had all these advantages that normal people don't have. All the advantages of the system and the teachings about it, right? Because, like, you're told to be a selfish person. Everything about selfish people do really well. Sociopaths and narcissists do really well in the American system, the world system, the economic system. Like, people who take things, takers, people who are aggressive, greedy people, they do real well on the material level. And you're encouraged to be that way. You're encouraged to have a killer instinct, be hard to people. All these things. Like, this is how our system works. And then you have a philosophy and a system that helps to soften you and helps you, understand your true purpose and connect with your soul, and understand that you have a higher nature, and it really helps you experience that. And even with that, people end up being just worthless pieces of shit anyway. And so, it was a real bummer for me when I went through that. Like, the whole thing with Daji and then my ex, and, the divorce kicked in the same time as I realized Daji was a piece of shit, and he was going to fucking run the system into the ground, and all these people were, just failing in every way to deal with that. And I was pretty stunned and pretty bummed out about it. But, I've accepted it, and, I have to, in terms of all my, future endeavors, whether it's the Gratefulness meditation or what I do here, I have to have boundaries, and, just accept that people are, more often than not going to let you down. sometimes you're pleasantly surprised, but most times people have an agenda and they don't even know it. And they're pushing some, egotistical agenda, and like they might be deceptive of how they sell it to you, but deep down it's, they're in it for their, egotistical selves. All right, let's go to the next comment here. All right, let me pull this one up. The person wrote, "Can't believe you still think Charlie Kirk really got whacked. I can't believe you leave stupid fucking ass retarded comments like that," right? This goes with this was an earlier comment, but it goes with the stuff with the Fluby person. When you think you know shit, like this is not a channel where you come up and you announce reality like you fucking figured it out. Because you watched a couple of fucking videos and and everyone else doesn't, and you're so much better than the rest of us. This is not the place for that bullshit. That's that's a retarded aspect of the truth community. The QBs, the right-wing dumb fucks, the people who, are very solid in their thinking. They need to solidify their ideas, their beliefs. They can't live in a world where they don't know. I've said this over and over again. Like, you don't know. No one knows. Like, no one knows what's real or not. It's, there's layers of illusion. I mean, the world itself is an illusion. And so, yeah, and you live in a world where you believe that they don't kill these people, these loose ends, right? They have no problem killing their people who work for them, their assets, whatever it is, right? I mean, whoever, the people who control the system. But, Michael Jackson and Robin Williams and all these other people, celebrities, and, Jeffrey Epstein are all living on some island together. It's silly. Why would they bother keeping them alive? Like, they've already served their purpose because they really reward people for hard work. They really care about other people. They're a threat. They're a loose end. They're a problem. And it's easy to get rid of the problem by just whacking them. I mean, so, I mean, that's the more logical idea of what's happening, even in just a story, like a fictional story. Like if you're watching a movie and they kept Charlie Kirk alive in the movie, you'd be like, why are they keeping him alive, right? They kill everybody else, but they keep the hero alive, right? Why keep him alive, right? Not that he would be a hero in the movie, but they don't have a problem killing everybody else, but some reason they have a soft spot for Charlie Kirk. It's silly, right? You're like, this is a plot flaw. Like this is a flaw in what we think about the people I call the controllers. You guys call them the elite. What we think about them, they don't have a problem tying up loose ends, and they don't want to. He's just a liability, and also a liability financially. Like you got to prop these people up. You're on the hook to It's silly. Like it's better for them to kill these people. You can say they can repurpose them, sure, but they have the people who control the system have a never-ending supply of fucking cronies that they can roll out there. Yeah, anyways, right. You get the idea. But when you think you're fucked. I guess that's all the comments. All right, so I did a sitting last night. I forgot to do my Tuesday sitting earlier in the day. I give an individual sitting for everybody. And there's this technique in the system where you directly link people to the absolute. Like most sittings, there's transmission to see what needs to be cleaned out, and there's cleaning, and then there's transmission to fill the void of whatever, things that block people's spiritual progress is cleaned away. And that's a normal individual meditation sitting in the Sajmark system. But there's other techniques, and this one called the absolute. You just connect people to the source, and the cleaning and everything happens. You're transmitting basically the whole time. And I gave this sitting, the sitting passed through me. And because I think I just passed through my, anniversary year, and I felt like there was a change. In the Sajmark system, you'll feel things going on, and you might go through something physically or emotionally or both. You go through some difficult situation, more likely, or something happens, and then you feel something changed. And it takes you some weeks and months to process the change, and maybe you fully never understand what happened, but you're just on a different level. And it's, kind of like the neatest thing of the system. And your consciousness has changed, your ideas have changed, there's something, maybe something's been removed that was hindering you, or there's something that, you reached a certain level there's an expansion in your consciousness. And like this happened to me, whenever it was, and I during the sitting I could tell, like there's this change. There's for those people who are, doing the meditation, the sitting for the Tuesday, the 4th of August. I also put it in the playlist for individual sittings. There's already an absolute sitting in there, but this one's a better one. And I went back and I took these notes. I took pictures of the preceptor book, and I have a folder on my phone with all these notes of things that I need to look at occasionally when I'm doing the sittings to remind me, and I looked at it, and the way it was worded, the way that you connect people to the absolute, I wasn't doing it exactly the way it said. There's just a small, variation on it. And I saw something different, and I realized something about it. The idea came to me, and so I had a better understanding of how to do that technique. So that was kind of a cool thing. All right, so it's getting long here. Let me wrap this one up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing for the apocalypse. And the ascension, everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.